Chapter 476. While Barbara was alarmed, Jowen's figure flashed as he ran to the other end of the long street. He was so fast that no one could see his trajectory. He was like a ghost, appearing every once in a while, appearing and disappearing at an unbelievable speed. Medusa let out a sharp cry as though she had turned on an accelerator as she chased after Jowen. Jowen originally didn't plan on fighting Medusa head-on. His injuries hadn't healed, so he wasn't suited for high-intensity battles. If they really fought, an intense clash of strength would probably tear his organs apart again. Ghost steps. He constantly used ghost steps. Under Slaughterer's infinite essence energy lock onto him, Jowen continuously used ghost steps to lure Medusa towards the sea. Seeing that Medusa had been lured away by Jowen, Barbara hurriedly jumped down the building and ran towards the spot where Lucas had fallen. Lucas spat out a mouthful of blood. A portion of the skin on his chest had petrified, but it didn't look serious. Before Barbara could reach him, Lucas had already crawled out of the ruins. "Where's Medusa?" Lucas looked around, but he didn't see Medusa. "He was lured over there by the youth who came with you." Barbara pointed in the direction of Jowen's departure with a strange expression. Then, she couldn't help but ask, "Lord Lucas, who is he?" He can actually ignore Medusa's eyes of petrification. Furthermore, his speed is just too fast. I've never seen anyone as fast as him. Barbara wanted to say that he was faster than Lord Lucas, but she swallowed her words in the end. "He's my friend, a hero stronger than me," Lucas said as he chased after Jowen. He strode in the direction Jowen had lured Medusa away. A hero stronger than Lord Lucas? But he's still so young. How is that possible? Barbara was alarmed. Gritting her teeth, Barbara saw a motorcycle beside her. As its owner was already petrified, the key was still on it. She rode on it and turned the key. The motorcycle started normally and chased in the direction Jowen and company had left. It wasn't just Jowen. Many epic experts in the city chased after them. Although they didn't dare to fight Medusa head-on, they couldn't let Medusa wreak havoc. Unfortunately, their speed was much slower than Jowen and Medusa's. Soon, they were left behind. Bam! Medusa's body slammed through the thick wall and crashed out of a building. The venomous snakes spewed venom at Jowen like a storm. Jowen flashed to the back of another building, and the venom splashed onto the wall. The reinforced concrete building's walls corroded, producing many holes. Despite using ghost steps continuously, he wasn't as fast as Medusa. All he could do was use various buildings and terrain to barely guarantee that Medusa wouldn't catch up to him. Medusa's speed is just too fast. If it were a mythical creature that wasn't a speed-type mythical creature, I wouldn't find it so difficult. Jowen's body. Jo's body wins movement. As he a body Jo as he was in, Jowen leaped into the air and dodged the flying rubble and various glass shards. He stepped on a piece of glass and used ghost steps to teleport again. However, before Jowen could land, he saw Medusa rush to the spot where he landed. Her head was filled with venomous snakes. Instantly switching to the godfiend life providence, the white shadow of poison wings appeared on its back. With a flap of its wings, Jowen's figure charged into the sky and dodged the venomous snakes devouring. Medusa's feet exerted strength as the hard concrete ground cracked. However, she leaped into the air like a cannonball and chased after Jowen. Her hands carried astonishing finger beams as she grabbed at Jowen's flying body. Jowen's body drew a strange arc in the air like a flying immortal. Amidst the danger, there was a hint of elegance. He dodged Medusa's repeated attacks and rushed into the 20th floor of a building. Bam! Medusa slammed into the wall as well, leaving a huge hole in it. Fragments splattered everywhere. Jowen lured Medusa all the way to the sea. He originally wanted to escape Medusa in the city, but he couldn't. All he could do was attempt to escape from her in the sea. As he chased and fled, Jowen tried his best to barely avoid being caught by Medusa. It was impossible for him to counterattack. Ignoring the fact that he hadn't recovered from his injuries, he was no match for Medusa, even if he was in his best condition. After running for more than an hour, he finally arrived at the sea. Zhou plunged into the sea and activated the Nine Dragons art as he swam deep into the sea. Although there were many dimensional creatures in the sea, it wasn't easy to find a terrifying existence like Medusa. However, Zhou soon realized that his decision wasn't correct. After Medusa chased him into the sea, her speed wasn't affected at all. She was still as fast as ever. Instead, the venomous snakes became even more agile. They were like fish in water as they constantly attacked Zhou when in the sea. Zhou immediately recalled that the legend said that Medusa had an affair with Poseidon. Fighting in the sea clearly wasn't difficult for her. It wasn't conducive to using ghost steps in the sea, so Zhou had no choice but to rush out of the seawater and use the god-fiend life providence to rush into the sky. Medusa shouldn't have the ability to fly, right? I'll escape into the sky. I don't believe she can catch up to me. Zhou tore out of the water and summoned White Shadow of Poison to fly into the sky. Medusa also leaped up from the sea like a ferocious sea monster. She bared her fangs and brandished her claws as she charged at Zhou. Her eyes constantly shot out beams of light as her snake hair swept toward Zhou. Zhou's figure constantly changed as he drew a strange arc. He moved in the air as though he was on the ground. He constantly used the force to move and dodge Medusa's attacks. Bam! Medusa's leap was exhausted as she fell back into the sea, stirring up waves that were more than 100 feet tall. She really couldn't fly. Zhou was immediately delighted. In-game, he had been sealed in the palace, so he had no chance to fly into the sky. He never expected Medusa to have such a weakness. However, before Zhou could rejoice, he saw the swan-like wings on Medusa's back spread out as she flew up again. F***ku. Why didn't you use your wings just now? All Zhou could do was continue fleeing, but he still couldn't shake off Medusa. He was chased to a dead end. Chapter 477. Escaping like this isn't a solution. How can I shake her off? Zhou didn't have Lucas's fearless sacrificial spirit. Now, he only wanted to shake off Medusa. As for whether Medusa would harm the world in the future, it wasn't something he could control. After all, he didn't want to die. Suddenly, Zhou's heart stirred as he flew in a direction. The direction he was heading to was the island Shang had brought him to. Zhou thought that perhaps he could use the magical waterfall and pool to shake off Medusa. As he had already cleared the dimensional zone and left his name on the dimensional zone's golden divine monument, he wouldn't be trapped inside again. He didn't have to worry about being trapped inside and not being able to come out. As long as he could avoid Medusa's pursuit and hide inside for a period of time, he could come out after Medusa left. He still didn't have the strength to kill the black six-winged dragon again. The last time, he had joined forces with Shang and had Zhang Yuji's help to kill the black six-winged dragon. This time, he was alone and had yet to recover from his serious injuries. If he really angered the black six-winged dragon, death was probably the only outcome. Zhou lured Medusa to the island. After a while, Lucas and the group of epic experts chased him to the sea. By the sea, they found traces of battle, but they didn't find anyone. A shivering resident told them that they had gone to the other side of the sea. Medusa was already extremely terrifying, and there were many dimensional creatures at sea. When the other epic experts heard that Medusa had been lured to the sea, they secretly heaved a sigh of relief. They thought to themselves, perhaps Medusa won't return after being lured to the sea. Lucas didn't care. He jumped onto a boat and started the engine to chase deep into the sea. Lord Lucas, I'll go with you. Barbara rushed over on her motorcycle and threw it to the ground before jumping onto the boat. Get off quickly. It's too dangerous at sea, Lucas said. Lord Lucas, have you forgotten? I came to the Peninsula of Gods from the sea. I'm a daughter of the sea to begin with. I can help you track your friends and Medusa at sea. However, you won't be able to find them even if you drive a boat, Barbara said as she started the boat. Lucas thought about it and agreed. Looking at the endless sea, other than knowing a general direction, he had no idea how to find Zhou, One, and Medusa. Then fight with the great Lucas, young lady. Lucas said as he stood at the bow of the ship and looked at the sea. After much difficulty, Joan finally returned to the island that nurtured the water sprites. Now, he wasn't in the mood to kill the water sprites. With a few leaps, he rushed to the waterfall on the island and plunged into the pool. Bang! Just as Joan entered the pool, Medusa's gaze landed on the pool, causing a wave that was several meters tall to explode. After the pool calmed down, Joan was nowhere to be seen. In the waterfall cave, Joan followed the water flow and quickly exited the waterfall cave. Without seeing Medusa, Joan heaved a sigh of relief. He thought to himself, Medusa can't see my corpse in the pool. I hope she doesn't jump down after me. However, what he was afraid of happened. Joan heard the sound of water splashing from the waterfall cave. Medusa had already rushed out of the water. I'm going to die. Joan hurriedly burrowed into the pool, hoping to get out. However, Medusa's snake hair had already burrowed into the pool. It was like a snake's nest with countless venomous snakes twisting in the pool. This fellow's intelligence is way too high. She actually knows how to cut off my exit. Joan felt depressed, but he had no choice but to move his body to dodge Medusa's attack. Bam! Medusa's gaze shot in all directions, causing the rocks and grass around her to explode and make a loud noise. Joan immediately felt that something was amiss. It was already so difficult to deal with a single Medusa. With her causing a ruckus, the black six-winged dragon would definitely be awakened. When the time came, wouldn't he die a worse death when facing two terrifying mythical creatures? Now, Joan wished he had an invisibility cloak and could immediately vanish in front of Medusa. Roar! An angry roar came from the middle of the island. The dragon was indeed awakened as it transformed into a black bolt of lightning and charged over. Come and bless me. Although they are dimensional creatures, they aren't of the same species. They might be enemies. Let them fight it out. Joan prayed inwardly. Unfortunately, he quickly realized that his thoughts were too naive. After the dragon rushed over, it ignored Medusa. It opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of poisonous smoke at Joan. I'm really doomed. Joan suddenly realized that he shouldn't have come here. It was too late to say anything now. There was the black dragon in front and Medusa behind. They attacked Joan from the front and back, completely cutting off his chances of escaping. Even if he used ghost steps, it was impossible for him to be faster than two mythical creatures. Regardless of whether he advanced or retreated, it was a dead end. Seeing that the two mythical creatures had surrounded Joan with no chance of escape, Joan gritted his teeth and switched to the God-fiend life providence. The Lost Country ring appeared on his finger. With a spin of the ring, Joan's body immediately vanished from the pincer attack. Lucas and Barbara sailed the boat to search for traces of Joan and Medusa. The more Barbara searched, the more her heart sank. Finally, she couldn't help but say to Lucas, Lord Lucas, your friend is probably dead. Although he's very strong, it's difficult for even a god to survive against an existence like Medusa. No, Barbara, you underestimate my friend. He's like me, a great human hero. I firmly believe that he's safe and sound. Perhaps he has already killed Medusa. We had to find him quickly. We can't let him enjoy the glory alone. However, Lucas had a determined expression. He continued standing at the bow of the boat and sized up the surrounding sea, searching for traces of Joan. That's impossible. That's Medusa, a demoness from myths and legends. Even the legendary human prince had to borrow a lot of artifacts from the goddess of wisdom to be able to defeat her. Barbara muttered in her heart, but she didn't dare to say it out loud. There seems to be an island over there. Let's go take a look, Lucas instructed. On the island, Joan's figure instantly vanished before appearing on the back of the black six-winged dragon. Without any hesitation, Joan wrapped one hand around the black six-winged dragon's neck. He wore a silver spiderweb glove on his palm. After touching the scales on the black six-winged dragon's neck, it immediately stuck firmly to it. Chapter 478. Sensing Joan on its back, The black six-winged dragon immediately erupted with terrifying black flames, hoping to shake Zhou Wen off its back. However, Zhou Wen was already prepared. He transformed into the demon dragon true body and stuck to its body. No matter how much the black flames on its body erupted, he refused to let go. Medusa was originally attacking Zhou Wen, but as she was on the black six-winged dragon's back, her gaze immediately landed on the black six-winged dragon. When the eyes of petrification landed on Zhou Wen through the truth listener earring, it would only increase Zhou Wen's essence energy, allowing him to maintain his demon dragon true body state. However, the black six-winged dragon didn't have such an ability. When Medusa's eyes of petrification looked at it, the scales on its body began to petrify. Roar! The black six-winged dragon was enraged as demonic flames rose from its back. Two pairs of hidden wings appeared, transforming into a true black six-winged dragon. The petrified scales on its body shattered like a stone shell, revealing the new scales beneath. The six dragon wings unfurled fiercely, and streaks of terrifying black flames shot out. They were like blades formed from black flames, and they shot towards Medusa. Medusa wasn't to be outdone as she brandished her snake hair to meet the black flaming saber beams. Saber beams collided with the snake hair. Although the saber beams shattered, many of the venomous snakes were also severed. Instantly, the two mythical creatures were enraged as they began a monstrous battle. Zhou Wen was firmly attached to the black six-winged dragon's back. No matter how intense the black six-winged dragon's battle was, it wasn't flung off. Zhou Wen's sky spider glove had a very strong adhesive force. Once he was stuck, unless he let go, he could only chop off his hand. In such a terrifying battle, it wasn't easy to survive. Thankfully, Zhou Wen had the demon dragon true body. Otherwise, just the aftershocks of the battle or the black flames that erupted from the black six-winged dragon would be enough to kill him. Furthermore, there was a crucial point. Medusa's eyes of petrification provided Zhou Wen with an endless supply of primordial energy. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to hold on. With only the demon dragon true body protecting him, he would be instantly killed in such a battle. Zhou Wen hugged the black six-winged dragon's neck tightly as he lay on its back. If Medusa wanted to kill him, she would definitely attack the black six-winged dragon. How could the black six-winged dragon allow her to bully it? The more the two fought, the angrier they became. Instantly, the mountain walls on the island shattered and the ground cracked. The poison corroded the rocks, and the black flames turned the originally lush island into a sea of flames. Only the golden apple tree remained unharmed, as though it was protected by a mysterious force. Zhou Wen wished he could immediately escape from the black six-winged dragon's back. Now that the black six-winged dragon and Medusa were truly enraged, even without him, the two monsters probably wouldn't stop. However, Zhou Wen really couldn't escape now. The force field produced by their battle pressed him firmly onto the back of the six-winged black dragon. If Zhou Wen forcefully rushed out, he would probably be struck by a terrifying explosive force in midair and be embroiled in their battle. His internal organs were hurting terribly. The wounds from earlier had probably torn open once more. Even though he had the Phantom Dragon true body protecting him, his body had still suffered quite a bit of damage. Blood kept flowing out from his mouth and nose. "I'm going to die." Zhou Wen endured the pain and hugged the black six-winged dragon's neck tightly. He tried his best to stick his body to its scales to reduce the extent of the damage. The black six-winged dragon was indeed worthy of being an existence that guarded the golden apple. It was actually able to fight a legendary demoness like Medusa to a draw. Although Medusa's eyes of petrification had some effect on it, it was difficult for it to completely petrify it. The petrified parts were only the scales on the surface. After they shattered, new scales grew underneath. The battle between the two monsters allowed Zhou Wen to see some of the abilities they hadn't used when he fought them previously. As Zhou Wen's strength hadn't reached that level, there was no need for them to use many skills when fighting him. Now that they had encountered an opponent that was on par with them, they used all sorts of skills, broadening Zhou Wen's horizons. Zhou secretly rejoiced that they had been able to kill the black six-winged dragon the last time purely because of luck. If it wasn't for the fact that the black six-winged dragon had been enraged by him and completely ignored it, giving demonic neonate a chance to stab the ancient sword into its heart, he and Ensheng would probably have been tortured in a head-on battle. Of course, Zhang Yuji had also played a key role. Otherwise, Zhou would have died. Zhou had the intention of summoning demonic neonate and letting her do it again, but in the current situation, even if he could kill one of them, the other wasn't something Zhou could deal with. In the end, death was the only outcome. Just as Zhou was thinking about how he could survive, the black six-winged dragon had already thrown Medusa to the ground and opened its mouth to bite her head. The venomous snake on Medusa's head curled over, but most of it was bitten off by the black six-winged dragon. Suddenly, tears of blood rolled out of Medusa's eyes. Two strange beams of light shot out from her eyes. The eyes of petrification didn't have any corporeal light. Medusa had another skill that shot light from her eyes, but it wasn't the eyes of petrification. It only had powerful destructive power and didn't have the power of petrification. However, the light that shot out this time was different from the other two. The light that shot out from the bloody tears shone on the black six-winged dragon's body, causing its body to begin petrifying. This petrification was different from before. Not only did the scales on the surface petrify, but the insides of the black six-winged dragon's body also petrified. However, the petrification speed wasn't very fast. Roar! Black flames rose from the black six-winged dragon's body as terrifying power erupted. It wanted to resist the petrification of its body, but it was useless this time. More and more parts of its body were petrified. First, it was its chest and head, then its front legs, and then its body and hind legs. In just a moment, the black six-winged dragon was about to turn into a statue. What's going on? Could this be the true power of Medusa's eyes of petrification? Was it just for fun? Zhou was alarmed. What was even worse was that the power of the Truth Listener earring was gradually unable to withstand the petrification beam. Zhou skin began to show signs of petrification after his demon dragon transformation. I can't wait any longer. Zhou knew that he would probably lose his life if he waited any longer. He immediately summoned demonic neonate and banana fairy. He held the fan that banana fairy had transformed into and fanned Medusa below. A strong gust of wind blew away Medusa's snake hair. Demonic neonate didn't hesitate as the ancient sword tore out of its scabbard and transformed into a purple beam that stabbed at Medusa's head. The black six-winged dragon hadn't completely petrified as it continued pressing down on Medusa. Medusa was powerless to dodge and could only twist her head to avoid the ancient sword. However, the ancient sword was simply too close to her, and she was unable to completely dodge it. A purple light flashed, and the ancient sword stabbed into her left eye. Immediately, blood flowed out from the wound, and Medusa let out a shrill scream. Chapter 479. Medusa let out a painful cry as a tremendous force surged out of her body, sending the half-petrified black six-winged dragon retreating more than 10 meters. She grabbed the hilt of the ancient sword with her fingertips and pulled it out of her eye like a thorn before throwing it ruthlessly. Zhou jumped down from the back of the black six-winged dragon and looked at Medusa's eyes. He saw that the eye that had been pierced by the ancient sword was blood red. Blood kept gushing out, and it looked like her injuries were not light. Upon discovering Zhou, Medusa angrily rushed over, but the petrified black dragon's body emitted cracking sounds. Its petrified flesh and bones cracked as it forcefully slammed into Medusa. Medusa was hit head-on and immediately rolled out. However, another purple beam flashed. The ancient sword that Medusa had thrown out flew back. While she was entangled with the black six-winged dragon, it stabbed into her other eye. Demonic neonate hid in the distance with a cold look in her eyes. Medusa's eyes were completely blinded as she immediately turned into a venomous snake that had lost its fangs. Although her combat strength was still terrifying, she wasn't as powerful as before. The black six-winged dragon dragged its half-petrified body and fought the blind Medusa. They were still locked in battle, but Joan finally managed to escape the battlefield. He watched the two monsters fight. The ground trembled as the two monsters fought in close combat. The ground cracked and the mountains collapsed as though it was the end of the world. Joan hid far away. When he saw Medusa and the black six-winged dragon crash into the sea together, the waves in the sea churned and stirred up huge waves. He couldn't help but be secretly delighted. If they really end up with an internecine outcome, I might really be lucky this time. I might be able to take advantage of the situation and kill two mythical creatures at once. As he thought this, he saw the black six-winged dragon and Medusa's figures sink into the sea. All he could see was the surging waves on the surface of the sea, but he didn't know what was happening below. After a while, the sea calmed down, but a lot of red liquid spread out. Don't tell me both of them are dead? If they die, will the crystals and companion eggs in their bodies be left behind? Just as Joan was considering if he should dive into the sea to fish up the corpse, he suddenly saw the seawater erupt like a volcano. Medusa, whose face was covered in blood and body was riddled with wounds, with a missing arm, rushed out of the sea. The ancient sword in her eyes had yet to be pulled out, but at that moment, she completely ignored it and charged at Joan with a shrill cry. Although her eyes were blind and she no longer had the ability to petrify, the poisonous snake on her head still allowed her to have the ability to see, so she wasn't completely blind. Joan turned around and ran. Although Medusa looked tragic, she was still a mythical creature. To be able to kill the black six-winged dragon in such a state, her strength was indeed terrifying. Medusa chased after him with all her might, as though she hated Joan to the core. However, Joan soon realized that her speed was much slower. Previously, Joan wasn't as fast as or even with ghost steps. Now, he could open up a distance with ghost steps. Medusa's speed was indeed much slower. It was completely different from before. Joan felt a lot more at ease as he rushed into the waterfall pool and returned to the island in reality. Medusa also rushed out, but Joan realized that her speed was slowing down. Furthermore, her body was constantly bleeding. It looked like her aura was rapidly weakening. She's about to die. Joan was delighted as he watched Medusa's aura weaken and her body become slower and slower. More importantly, demonic Neonate's ancient sword had completely sunk into her eyes. It had probably stabbed into her brain. Although Medusa was no longer a threat to him, Joan still tried his best to maintain the same distance from her. Who knew if Medusa would unleash a huge explosion in the end, just like when the black six-winged dragon died. However, Joan soon realized that Medusa was really on the brink of death. As she walked, there was a large pool of blood on the ground. The wounds on her body were constantly bleeding. With her physique, her wounds shouldn't have been bleeding all the time. Clearly, the black six-winged dragon's power was strange, preventing her wounds from healing. Now Medusa was even staggering as she walked. She was like a hobbling old woman. She no longer had her previous might. When Joan retreated to the beach, Medusa seemed to know that she was at the end of her tether. She released her final strength and pounced at Joan with a sharp cry. Her pounce looked rather imposing, but her strength was far from enough. She no longer had the terrifying energy fluctuations from before. Joan summoned Overlord Sword and slashed out a sword beam at Medusa, who was pouncing at him. Lucas and Barbara had already arrived near the island. Lucas, who was looking around, saw Joan standing on the beach and was immediately overjoyed. Just as he was about to call out to him, he suddenly saw Medusa pounce at Joan. Barbara also saw this scene and immediately cried out in alarm. However, in the next second, Joan drew his sword and slashed at the pouncing Medusa. The intense sword beam was like a sun's halo as it slashed at Medusa's neck. Then, Medusa's body was sent flying by the impact of the sword beam. As the gear-like sword beam constantly spun and sliced, the flesh and bones of her neck were severed. Finally, her head was chopped off and flew into the air. Barbara's screams came to a halt. Her mouth was agape, as she widened her eyes at the unbelievable scene. The demoness, Medusa, who had wreaked havoc in the entire city and left countless epic experts on the peninsula of gods helpless, had been beheaded with a single strike. It was unbelievable. Lucas was also surprised. Then he subconsciously took out his cell phone out of habit and took a photo of it. Crack! The image on the phone screen froze. Under the setting sun, a man stood on the beach with his back facing the camera. He held a huge sword that was pointed diagonally at the ground. Opposite the youth, Medusa's body floated into the air. Blood spewed out as a head flew into the air. The entire scene looked extremely tense, with an indescribable beauty of violence. The sword-wielding man's calmness formed a strong contrast with the twisting, venomous snake on Medusa's head and the blood that spewed out. It made people feel their blood boil for some reason when they saw this photo. Lucas looked at the photo and suddenly had a whim. After adding a line of explanation, he tried to upload it to his online account. Medusa's Apocalypse, the descent of a hero that's close to God. The moment this photo was posted, it immediately exploded on the internet. Countless people on the peninsula of gods left comments when they saw this photo. Chapter 480. Although the people who paid attention to Lucas were basically young people from the peninsula of gods, it was also because of this that they knew how terrifying Medusa was. Many people had seen Medusa wreak havoc in the entire city with their own eyes. It was unknown how many innocent citizens have been harmed. So many epic experts have been mercilessly killed by Medusa. Even those who had never fought Medusa knew that such a legendary demoness was definitely at the mythical stage. Now that Medusa had been killed, they were pleasantly surprised. Many people left comments asking Lucas if Medusa had really been killed. Many people also asked who the man who killed Medusa was and who the sword-wielding man was. Then, this photo and Lucas's message spread on the internet at the speed of light, triggering a tsunami-like heated discussion on the internet. There were two main points of discussion. One was the authenticity of the photo, and the other was who the sword-wielding man was. Lucas's personal page was about to explode. Everyone was waiting for Lucas's reply. However, Lucas didn't read the comments. After he posted the photo, he boarded the island with Barbara. Haha, I knew you could do it. You're a great hero like Lucas. You saved our city. Lucas went forward and gave Zhou a firm hug. I'm not as great as you. Zhou's words weren't sarcastic, but sincere. Lucas knew that he couldn't do it, but he was only doing what he could. Although there was an accident, it wasn't his original intention. One day, you will surpass me. However, Lucas was filled with confidence. He patted Zhou on the shoulder and said, Quick, take a look at your spoils of war. That's the reward you deserve. It's also a hero's medal. Zhou rolled his eyes inwardly. He was clearly cutting his own flesh to dig for treasure. Why did it sound so righteous when it came from Lucas's mouth? Zhou didn't stand on ceremony. This was a mythical creature he had risked his life to kill, so he naturally couldn't let it go. Soon, Zhou discovered a dimensional crystal in Medusa's corpse. There was a projection of Medusa in the dimensional crystal. It was clearly an essence, energy skill crystal. Old friend, your luck is really good. You actually obtained Medusa's essence, energy skill crystal. Come on, let me take a photo of you and upload it online with the photo from before. Let them witness the heroic moment together. As Lucas spoke, he was about to take a photo with his phone. What did you say? Zhou hurriedly stopped Lucas and glared at him. I said, record it and upload it online. This is your heroic history, Lucas said. No, what do you mean by the photo? Zhou asked again. That's it. I just took a photo of you and uploaded it online. The response is pretty good. You will soon become a hero that everyone knows. Lucas opened his personal page and showed the photo to Zhou as though he was flaunting it. Zhou saw that there were more than 60,000 replies, and it was still increasing. Immediately, his face turned livid. Quickly delete the photo. Zhou was really anxious. Originally, the Bureau and the 6 families didn't know that he had advanced to the epic stage. If they knew that he had advanced to the epic stage and had killed a dimensional creature like Medusa, they would only be more careful when they sent people to cause trouble for him in the future. The people they sent would also be more powerful. Wouldn't that be causing trouble for himself? Why delete it? Isn't that good? Lucas asked in puzzlement. I don't want to be a hero, nor do I want to be famous. Lucas, you mustn't tell anyone about what happened today. Don't let others know that I killed Medusa, all right? Joan also knew that it was useless to delete it now. This photo had probably been forwarded countless times. He took a closer look at the photo and realized that there was only a back view. Furthermore, due to the sunlight reflecting off the Overlord's sword, the blade was almost indistinct. Even his back was affected by the light and shadows, so it shouldn't be that easy to recognize him. Although I don't know why you have such a strange request. As your friend, I'll respect your decision. Do you still want to delete this photo? Lucas said, Forget it. Joan shook his head. If he deleted it now, it would only make things worse. Joan looked at Barbara and asked, Missy, can you help me keep this a secret? No, Barbara said with a shake of her head. Barbara, he's my friend, Lucas said anxiously. Barbara took out a notebook and pen and handed it to Joan. She blinked and said, It's fine if you want me to help you keep a secret, but you have to give me an autograph. Why do you want my autograph? Joan frowned slightly. He still remembered Jack's matter clearly, so he usually didn't sign autographs easily. Fool, it's because you are her hero. Lucas patted Joe, went on the back, and laughed. Joan knew that he had been overthinking when he saw Barbara's face turn red. I can give you an autograph, but don't tell anyone about this, all right? Joan took the notebook and pen and signed his name. Sure. Barbara took the notebook and carefully looked at Joan's signature. Then she closed it carefully and hugged it to her chest. She thought happily, Of course I'll keep it a secret for you. Only I know that you're the hero who killed Medusa. Only I have your signature. This is a hero and secret that belongs to me alone. Are you going back with us? Lucas asked Joan. It's inevitable that I'll be suspected if I go back with you. Go back first. Joan didn't return with them because of this. He still wanted to enter the island to see if the black six-winged dragon was dead. If it was dead, there might be something like a crystal left behind. It would be best if he could obtain a companion egg. Even if there was nothing left, it wouldn't be bad to pluck another golden apple. However, Joan remembered that the golden apple had just grown the last time. It hadn't grown up yet, so it probably hadn't ripened yet. After Lucas and Barbara left, Joan entered the dimensional zone through the pool and went to the apple tree to take a look. The golden apple had only just grown and was still far from ripening. Even if it was plucked now, it would probably be useless. Unable to find the ruins of the black six-winged dragon on the island, Joan came to the seawater where it had fought Medusa. He summoned the silver water snake and got it to search to see if it could find anything. Chapter 481. As soon as the silver water snake entered the sea, it merged with the seawater as if it had disappeared. Joan got it to search the bottom of the sea. After a while, he saw the silver water snake crawl out of the sea with something in its mouth. Joan saw that it looked like a black pineapple without any leaves. On careful look, he realized that it was an egg covered in scales. Black six-winged dragon's egg? Joan was overjoyed. The silver water snake handed the egg to Joe who used his mysterious phone to take a look. It was indeed a mythical companion egg. Six-winged guardian dragon, mythical life providence, guardian dragon life soul, wings of black flame wheel of fortune, the last guardian strength, 69 speed, 68 constitution, 68 primordial energy, 65 innate skills, poison breath, dragon's fury, hellfire, 6 wings slash. Companion form, devil flame dragon wings. A real mythical companion beast. Joan was pleasantly surprised. This was the first time he had seen a real mythical companion egg. The ones he had only had the potential to reach the mythical stage, but none of them had truly advanced to the mythical stage. The one closest to the true mythical stage was demonic neonate, but her stats were too low. She needed to grow again. Otherwise, she could only release her flying sword from afar, unable to participate in the battle head-on. This six-winged guardian dragon was at the mythical stage. If it could hatch, it would undoubtedly increase Zhou Wen's strength tremendously. With it, the chances of Zhou when defeating the mythical creature in the temple were much higher. The essence energy requirements are definitely very high, but my slaughterer has the ability to have unlimited essence energy. I should be able to hatch it, right? With that in mind, Zhou used the mysterious phone to take a picture of the six-winged guardian dragon into the phone before getting the blood-colored avatar to attempt to hatch it. The incubation was surprisingly smooth. After activating Slaughterer, the blood-colored avatar easily hatched the six-winged guardian dragon. A six-winged guardian black dragon tattoo appeared on his back. Zhou summoned the six-winged guardian dragon excitedly. Seeing a black dragon appear in front of him, the feeling was indescribable. However, the six-winged guardian dragon that appeared in front of Zhou only had 2 wings. It wasn't in its six-winged form. After Zhou made it use its life soul, the six-winged guardian dragon turned into a six-winged state and its strength greatly increased. After getting the six-winged guardian dragon to use all its skills, Zhou realized that this fellow's skills weren't complete. It lacked a few skills compared to the real six-winged guardian dragon, but these 4 skills were enough. What caught Zhou's attention was its Wheel of Destiny. Demonic Neonate also had a Wheel of Destiny, but it was written as First Revolution without any annotations. However, the six-winged guardian dragon was different. Behind its Wheel of Destiny was written The Last Guardian. Furthermore, there were annotations. The Final Guardian, Miracle of Life Guardian. Although there were annotations, Zhou still didn't understand what they meant. Zhou got the six-winged guardian dragon to demonstrate, but it couldn't do so. Regardless, Zhou was still very excited to have his first true mythical companion beast. Riding the six-winged guardian dragon, Zhou circled the sky and realized that it wasn't as comfortable as he had imagined. This fellow's flying state was too violent and unstable. Riding it was like riding a wild horse that had escaped its reins. It didn't feel good. The legendary Dragon Knight of the West doesn't look as cool as it looks when he rides a giant dragon. Zhou unsummoned the dragon and glanced at the golden apple that had yet to ripen. Finally, he gave up on plucking it and left the mysterious dimensional zone. After returning to the Peninsula of Gods, he quickly contacted Enchantment. "You were the one who killed Medusa, right?" Enchantment had clearly seen the photos on the internet and asked directly. Zhou recounted the situation. Enchantment wasn't as excited as Lucas and company. He said to Zhou sternly, "Young Master One, you only have 1 life. Furthermore, it doesn't belong to you alone. I hope you won't use it to do such dangerous things again." Originally, I only wanted to lure Medusa away before shaking it off. I never expected that I couldn't shake it off no matter how hard I tried. In the end, I had no choice, Zhou explained. "There definitely won't be a next time. Forget it. I'll take you back quickly. I can't let you stay outside any longer. It's only been a few days since we came out, and you almost died twice. It's best you return to school and play games," Enchantment said. "Has the ban on the Peninsula of Gods been lifted?" Zhou asked. Once Medusa's matter broke out, the Peninsula of Gods was already in chaos. What's the use of a ban? Now that the thief has probably left the Peninsula of Gods, there's naturally no need to continue banning him from leaving the country. Enchantment paused before saying, "Come back quickly. I'll book the plane tickets now." When Zhou returned to the hotel, Enchantment didn't say anything else. However, he booked the earliest plane tickets to leave the Peninsula of Gods. They could leave early the next morning. While Zhou was resting, he switched on his phone to look at Lucas's personal page. The number of comments under the photo had already exceeded 200,000. The latest comments were asking who the hero who was close to a god was. This was because after Lucas returned, he had confirmed Medusa's death. Now, they only wanted to know who had killed Medusa. Thankfully, the photo only had a back view. Furthermore, due to the lighting, it wasn't very clear. Even Enchantment had to guess. It was impossible to recognize Zhou from such a photo. No matter how the people from the Bureau guessed, they probably wouldn't think of him. After all, in the eyes of the Bureau, he was still a student who hadn't advanced to the epic stage. This photo wasn't just popular on the Peninsula of Gods. Even the upper echelons of the Federation noticed it. After all, Medusa had truly appeared. Such a creature was undoubtedly at the mythical stage. They were also very concerned about people who could kill mythical creatures. It wasn't that no one in the Federation could kill mythical creatures. At the very least, there were such people in the 6 families. However, that was under the condition of relying on mythical pets. Furthermore, there weren't many of them. There were only a few in a family. Now that a person who could kill a mythical creature had suddenly appeared, it naturally attracted the attention of many factions. It wasn't just the 6 families. Many bigwigs in various places were also guessing who this person was and if he was from the 6 families. However, not many people knew the answer. The next morning, Ensheng took Zhou Wen to the airport. Zhou Wen sat in the departure lounge while Ensheng went to the bathroom. Just as he was sending a message to bid farewell to Lucas, a person walked to the chair behind Zhou Wen and sat down. Zhou Wen didn't pay attention to the person, but after he sat down, he leaned against the backrest and sat with his back facing Zhou Wen. The back of his head touched Zhou Wen's hair. Zhou Wen frowned slightly. Just as he was about to lean his head forward and not be so close to him, he heard a voice behind him. "It looks like you've been doing well recently." Chapter 482. When Zhou Wen heard this voice, his body trembled. He was pleasantly surprised. Just as he was about to stand up and turn to look at him, he heard him say, "Just sit there and don't move." "Zhongzia, where have you been all this time? Why are you here?" Zhou Wen asked in a low voice. He could tell that the voice belonged to Zhongzia. He knew that Zhongzia's situation might be worse than his. At the very least, the Bureau wouldn't dare openly capture him in Hui Haifeng, but they weren't that polite to Zhongzia and Jiangyan. "I'm walking around and taking the bunch of dogs from the Bureau out for a stroll." Zhongzia leaned against Zhou Wen and said in a relaxed tone, "As for you, the speed at which you grow is really surprising. You were the one who killed Medusa, right?" "That was an accident." Zhou Wen paused and said, "I got the thing you left behind. It's on me now. I'll give it to you." "There's no need. That was a souvenir I left for you," Zhongzia said lazily. "Did teacher use that method?" Zhou Wen asked after a moment of silence. "Who knows?" Zhongzia curled his lips and said, "Even if you know what method was used, what's the point?" Zhou Wen thought that it made sense and was momentarily at a loss for words. "Did Medusa drop a companion egg?" Zhongzia asked. "No, there was only one essence energy skill crystal," Zhou Wen answered truthfully. Although the two of them hadn't spent much time together, perhaps because they were both Wangming Yuan students and were in the same situation, or perhaps because of some other reason, Zhou Wen had a nagging feeling that Zhongzia was different from others. If it wasn't necessary, he wasn't willing to be perfunctory with Zhongzia. "Lend me the Medusa crystal. Pass it to me from the left. The surveillance cameras can't capture it," Zhongzia said. "What do you want it for?" Zhou Wen said as he took out the Medusa crystal and handed it to Zhongzia. He had seen the requirements of the Medusa crystal. Zhou Wen couldn't meet the requirements of 41 Constitution and 21 Curse stats. In addition, there were the requirements for life providences and life souls. Zhou Wen didn't know if his life providences and life souls had any effects, so he couldn't be sure. However, just the stat requirement was enough to prevent him from using Medusa crystals for the time being. Furthermore, if there was a need, he could head to the Cursed Demon Palace to grind Medusa again. "I needed to do something. Don't ask me what it is, I don't want to say." Zhongzia took the dimensional crystal, and after a while, he touched Zhou Wen's hand and said, "This is for you. Treat it as interest." Zhou Wen took it and saw that it was a box. Just as he was about to open it, he heard Zhongzia say, "Don't look at it now. Find a place without anyone to look at it." Zhou Wen was about to say something when Zhongzia stood up. "I hope I'll still be me the next time we meet." With that said, Zhongzia walked out of the hall while Zhou Wen sat there motionlessly. It was not difficult to turn back, but it was difficult to meet again. When Ensheng returned, Zhongzia had already disappeared into the crowd outside. If it wasn't for the box in his hand, Zhou Wen would have suspected that what had just happened had really happened. The scene of Wang Mingyuan cooking for the 4 of them, and playing cards with him felt like it had happened yesterday. However, today, they couldn't even look each other in the eye when they sat down to talk. This darn world. Zhou cursed softly as though he was venting some emotions in his heart. Lucas said that he wanted to send them off, but Zhou told him that there was no need. The reason Encheng didn't get Zhou to inform him in advance was because he didn't want him to send them off. He didn't want anyone to connect the person in the photo to Zhou. Encheng sent Zhou all the way back to school. From the looks of it, he definitely wouldn't allow any accidents to happen to Zhou. In fact, Zhou didn't have the energy to cause trouble. His injuries had worsened, so he really didn't want to move. After returning to his dorm, he lay down on the bed and quickly fell asleep. When he woke up, it was already noon. He still didn't feel hungry, so Zhou didn't eat. Thinking of the box Zhongzia had given him, he took it out of the chaos bead and opened it. There's nothing? Zhou couldn't help but be taken aback. The box was empty. That's not right. Zhou quickly realized that the box wasn't empty. As the box was made of paper, it was very light. However, Zhou could feel that the box was rather heavy, as though there was a piece of metal inside. Could it be? Zhou thought of something and reached his hand into the box. Inside the empty box, there seemed to be something blocking Zhou's hand, preventing him from reaching his hand in. When Zhou's fingers touched it, he felt as though he had touched something cold. Furthermore, where his fingertips touched, space distorted visibly, as though a transparent plastic sheet had been wrinkled. No way. Zhou's expression turned odd. He took out his mysterious phone and shone it at the box. Immediately, a row of information appeared on the phone. Invisibility cloak. Mythical. Just looking at the top row of information, many thoughts flashed through Zhou's mind as he understood many things. The person who stole the invisibility cloak companion egg was Zhongzia. Zhou carefully recalled and suddenly understood why he found the thief's photo somewhat familiar. Now that he thought about it, the thief's looks and even his figure were different from Zhongzia's. However, his eyes had Zhongzia's unique temperament. Zhongzia didn't steal the invisibility cloak because he was trapped in the cursed demon palace. Instead, he stole the invisibility cloak to deal with Medusa's eyes of petrification, right? Zhou gradually pondered over the cause and effect of the matter. Clearly, Zhongzia hadn't been able to incubate the invisibility cloak, so he hadn't been able to kill Medusa. However, he had used some unknown method to get Medusa out of the cursed demon palace. With Zhou's understanding of his character, Zhongzia definitely wanted to use the experts on the Peninsula of Gods to kill Medusa. As for how many people would die, Zhongzia probably didn't care. In the end, Medusa was killed by Zhou, which was why he had come to see Zhou. Otherwise, Zhou wouldn't have known that he was the one who had stolen the invisibility cloak. He probably wouldn't even know that he had been here. Zhongzia, what are you doing? Zhou was somewhat worried. Zhongzia's character was too extreme, and he was extremely talented. If he really did evil, he might become a devil like Jing Daoxian. Looking at the invisibility cloak companion egg in his hand, Zhou's expression turned extremely complicated. He had originally gone to the Peninsula of Gods for the invisibility cloak, but he never expected that the invisibility cloak would land in his hands in such a manner. Chapter 483. Zhou carefully looked at the invisibility cloak's information and felt that something was amiss. Invisibility cloak, mythical life providence, flawless life soul, combat cloak wheel of destiny, deity possession strength, 54 speed, 71 constitution, 67 essence energy, 72 talent skill, invisibility companion form. Invisibility, there wasn't any problem with the stats. The wheel of destiny was somewhat odd. The annotation said that it was a miracle of a deity's descent. These weren't a problem, but the invisibility cloak was a companion egg. However, its information didn't say that it was a companion egg. It was the same as a companion beast that had already hatched. Zhou took out the transparent companion egg from the box. He could touch it. It was in the shape of an egg and was about the size of a rugby ball. He attempted to inject his essence energy into it, but the invisibility cloak companion egg didn't react at all. It didn't accept his essence energy at all, much less take the initiative to absorb it. I wonder what method the Zhang family used back then to turn the invisibility cloak back into a companion egg state. Although the invisibility cloak doesn't have an owner now and looks the same as an ordinary companion egg, it's essentially in a state that has already hatched. It's no wonder no one has been able to hatch it after so many years. Zhou Wen was already mentally prepared, so he didn't find it strange that he couldn't hatch it. With the companion egg in hand, Zhou Wen switched his essence energy art to the first order of chaos before attempting to inject his essence energy into the companion egg. Legend had it that the invisibility cloak came from the temple of the god of dual natures, Phanes. As for the relationship between Phanes and chaos, it was very subtle. Furthermore, they came from the same pantheon. Zhou Wen felt that perhaps the first order of chaos would be of some use. The outcome didn't disappoint Zhou Wen. After converting the essence energy art to the first order of chaos, the invisibility cloak actually accepted Zhou Wen's essence energy. The entire companion egg trembled slightly. Zhou Wen was delighted as he sped up the infusion of essence energy, but the companion egg only trembled slightly. When Zhou Wen expended all his essence energy, the invisibility cloak stopped moving. What's going on now? Will it work or not? Zhou would try it a few more times. When he infused his essence energy, the invisibility cloak companion egg reacted. Once he stopped, the invisibility cloak's reaction disappeared, but there were no signs of it hatching. After some thought, Zhou Wen felt that this might have something to do with his first order of chaos's low level. He had only gained basic mastery of the first order of chaos and hadn't even condensed a life providence. If he could cultivate it to a higher level, he might be able to hatch an invisibility cloak. Zhou Wen had no choice but to put away the invisibility cloak. Even if he were to cultivate the first order of chaos now, it wasn't something that could be improved in a short period of time. Although I can't use the invisibility cloak for the time being, I've accidentally obtained a 6-winged guardian dragon companion beast. I can give it a try and see if I can fight that snake in the temple. Zhou Wen took out his phone and activated the Zhuolu instance dungeon. When he arrived at the temple guarded by the snake again, Zhou Wen summoned the 6-winged guardian dragon and got it to fight the snake. The 6-winged guardian dragon was slightly faster than the snake, but its strength was clearly not as strong as the snake. A terrifying collision erupted in the palace. Dragon breath, demonic flames, poisonous smoke, and all sorts of powers erupted. The blood-colored avatar was only affected by the aftershocks and was nearly killed. Thankfully, Zhou Wen had activated the demon dragon true body in time to prevent himself from dying. Seeing that although the 6-winged guardian dragon was at a disadvantage, the snake couldn't kill it in a short period of time, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. With the 6-winged guardian dragon as the main force, he might have a chance of killing the snake. That way, there was no need for him to get the invisibility cloak. Zhou Wen summoned demonic neonate and banana fairy. Just as he was about to rush in to help, he saw the snake's eyes turn into mirrors. Then, it glanced at the 6-winged guardian dragon. The 6-winged guardian dragon's body immediately vanished, as though it had been projected into the snake's eyes. In the next second, Zhou Wen saw the notification of the 6-winged guardian dragon's death. He hurriedly turned around and ran. However, he was still a little too late. The snake glanced at him before the phone screen went black. What essence energy skill is that? Do you have to be so shameless? Even the mythical 6-winged guardian dragon died from a glance. Are you not giving me a way out? Zhou Wen was depressed. After entering the game again, Zhou Wen tried a few more times. If the snake didn't have such an essence energy skill, he and the 6-winged guardian dragon might have been able to put up a fight. However, every time the snake used that skill, he and the 6-winged guardian dragon would be instantly killed. There was no way for them to retaliate. All Zhou Wen could do was take the 6-winged guardian dragon to another temple. The outcome was even worse. The dimensional creature that looked like a wolf and a tiger directly used its speed to kill the 6-winged guardian dragon. The dimensional creature's speed far exceeded the 6-winged guardian dragon's. Furthermore, its claws were almost indestructible. In just a few exchanges, the 6-winged dragon's wings were torn off. Although it was also a mythical creature, the six-winged guardian dragon was clearly much weaker than the two. This also had something to do with the companion beast's incomplete skills. If it was a six-winged guardian dragon with complete skills, it should be able to last a little longer. If I can't kill these two fellows, can I kill the weaker ones? Zhou took the six-winged guardian dragon to the underground sea, hoping to use the six-winged guardian dragon to torture the 9 black dragons that were pulling the carriage. Although they were both at the mythical stage, the black dragons were chained and their strength was greatly reduced. They were definitely not as strong as the six-winged guardian dragon. Zhou confidently brought the six-winged guardian dragon to the underground sea. He rode the dragon and headed for the sea, prepared to start a massacre. However, the moment they entered the sea and saw the 9 black dragons, the black dragons seemed to explode. The chains on their bodies automatically broke apart. Then, a tragic scene happened. The six-winged guardian dragon was like a lamb that had entered a pack of wolves. It was torn apart by the 9 ferocious black dragons. What's going on? They can break free of the chains without opening the carriage door? Zhou looked at the black game screen and felt extremely depressed. Zhou tried to head to the underground sea again. This time, he didn't summon the six-winged guardian dragon, and the 9 black dragons didn't break free of the chains. However, when Zhou summoned the six-winged guardian dragon, the 9 black dragons seemed to be injected with adrenaline. They broke free of the chains and ate the six-winged guardian dragon and the blood-colored avatar again. As a person, I should be more pragmatic. Zhou had yet to recover from his injuries and had lost a lot of blood. Now, he really didn't want to waste any more blood. He didn't dare take the six-winged guardian dragon to fight mythical creatures. Instead, he headed for Tiger Cage Pass. Chapter 484. In all of Tiger Cage Pass, the only dimensional creature Zhou hadn't killed was the masked man. The masked man had all sorts of primordial energy skills, and they were extremely bizarre. Although Zhou wasn't afraid, he couldn't kill him. Now that he had the help of the six-winged guardian dragon, Zhou felt that it was time to give it another try. Apart from Truth Listener, six-winged guardian dragon, fire furnace queen, demonic neonate, banana fairy, and a few other commonly used companion beasts were summoned. The tiger cage demonized general was nothing. The six-winged guardian dragon's poisonous breath killed him. After entering the city, the fire furnace queen released the fire of the furnace, turning the surroundings into a sea of fire. Any demon soldiers or demon generals that came would die. The masked man's turned beings into soldiers, and paper cuts into generals were not of much use. They could not stop the fire furnace queen, who was wreaking havoc everywhere. No matter how many of them came out, they were burned to death. The fire furnace queen's combat strength could only be considered ordinary, but when it came to grinding low-level monsters, she was really good. She was an invincible existence. A few mythical pets weren't as useful as her. Thinking back to how pathetic he was when he entered the city and how he was trampling over the ancient city, Zhou felt that he was indeed improving. Under Zhou's command, the six-winged guardian dragon immediately charged at the masked man. It spewed out poisonous smoke, and the demonic flames on its body surged, burning the masked man to ashes. Unfortunately, it only burned a piece of yellow paper. The masked man appeared in another place. The six-winged guardian dragon roared as it charged over and killed the masked man again. However, it was still a piece of yellow paper. Although the masked man's level and strength were far inferior to the six-winged guardian dragon, his technique was just too profound. The six-winged guardian dragon failed to kill him after a few attacks. This guy's skills are so powerful. If he can get a skill, he'll really make a killing. Is the immortal rope more powerful, or is his yellow paper doppelganger more powerful? Although beans for soldiers and paper cutouts for generals are impressive, they don't seem to be of much use. It's fine against low-level monsters, but against high-level existences, it's basically useless, Zhou thought. The six-winged guardian dragon chased the masked man all over the city. When the six-winged guardian dragon spewed out its dragon breath again, it saw the strange man throw a rope into the air. A dark cloud appeared in the sky, and in a few steps, he pulled the rope into the cloud. The six-winged guardian dragon spat out a mouthful of demonic flames and dispersed the dark clouds, but the masked man was nowhere to be seen. The pair of dragon eyes scanned the city, but did not see the masked man. The six-winged guardian dragon was enraged as demonic flames erupted from its body, burning all the demonic soldiers and demonic generals around it to death. However, a demonic soldier leaped up from the demonic flames and flipped onto the city wall. His figure changed from a demonic soldier to a masked man. He held beans in one hand and paper cutouts in the other. He scattered them into the air and immediately turned into demonic soldiers and demonic generals that filled the city. The six-winged guardian dragon rushed over and shattered the masked man, but it turned into yellow paper fragments. This skill is too sick. Even a mythical creature can't do a thing to him. Who is this fellow? Zhou was dumbfounded. Zhou had seen quite a number of dimensional creatures. Typically, high-level creatures could crush low-level creatures. This was the first time Zhou had seen an epic creature play with a mythical creature. How can I kill him? As Zhou was pondering over it, he saw the six-winged guardian dragon's 6 wings flap wildly, shooting out demonic flames that resembled saber beams. It swept away all the demonic soldiers and demonic generals in the city. The masked man had nowhere to hide and was forced out. He pulled the rope in a bid to escape into the dark clouds. Before he could enter the dark clouds, a purple beam of light suddenly flew over and severed the masked man's head along with the rope. Plop! The masked man's headless corpse fell to the ground with the rope. The purple light transformed into a flying sword and returned to the scabbard in demonic neonate's arms. However, Zhou soon realized that the corpse that had fallen to the ground had turned into a puppet, and at the center of the puppet's eyebrows, there was a red that looked like a drop of blood. Killed epic creature, elegant emperor avatar puppet. Discovered dimensional crystal. Zhou originally imagined that he had rejoiced for nothing, but he never expected to see a notification on his phone. A dimensional crystal dropped at the same time. Zhou saw that the dimensional crystal didn't have the shadow of the masked man, but there was the shadow of a spirit talisman. Although he found it odd, he was still overjoyed. Although it wasn't a companion egg, he was already very satisfied that an essence energy skill crystal dropped. I wonder which skill it is. Zhou picked up the essence energy skill crystal and wanted to absorb it. Life providence doesn't match. Unable to absorb. A notification popped up on his phone, leaving Zhou slightly taken aback. He knew that mythical skills required a life providence and life soul, but it was rare for an epic essence energy skill to have a life providence requirement. Zhou switched life providences in an attempt. The ancient sovereign life providence, 8 perfections wisdom, and Godfiend were useless. When Zhou switched to his Dao body, he finally absorbed the essence energy skill crystal. Strange energy surged out of the crystal and drilled into the blood-colored avatar's body. It opened up a new essence energy circulation channel in the blood-colored avatar's body. An indescribable coolness spread throughout Zhou body as strange information flowed into Zhou brain. Absorbed elegant emperor avatar puppet crystal. Attained epic essence energy skill substitute talisman. Zhou was delighted. Is this the elegant emperor's substitute technique? It should be the skill that allows the paper talisman to substitute death, right? With that skill, wouldn't I no longer have to be afraid of death? It's equivalent to having countless lives. After Zhou carefully studied the substitute talisman's information, the expression on his face turned odd. He had no choice. The substitute talisman was the paper talisman's substitute death skill. However, this skill wasn't as simple as it seemed. This was because it wasn't something that could be used immediately. He had to prepare the substitute talisman in advance so that he could use it in battle. This essence energy skill wasn't something that could be used at the last minute. It required a long period of preparation in advance, and the process was rather complicated. The only thing that comforted Zhou, was that creating the substitute talisman required a large amount of essence energy. Thankfully, he had the slaughter life soul, so he had almost infinite essence energy. He didn't have to worry about running out of essence energy. Zhou found the tools and planned on trying to create the substitute talisman. Creating a substitute talisman didn't necessarily require yellow paper, wood, stone, or metal. Even a tile could be used as the basic material for a substitute talisman. However, typically, jade and plants had the highest success rate when creating a substitute talisman. Zhou took an ordinary piece of paper. It was likely made of plant materials, so the success rate wasn't too low. Zhou focused and used the substitute talisman skill. He extended his finger and condensed his essence energy at his fingertip. He pressed it on the white paper and drew a strange rune. Chapter 485. However, before the talisman was completed, the paper shattered. It couldn't withstand the corrosion of the primordial energy. Zhou's primordial energy was almost depleted after just drawing the talisman once without succeeding. The substitute talisman's expenditure on primordial energy was just too great. However, his Tao body recovered his primordial energy very quickly. Zhou didn't have to worry about having insufficient primordial energy. However, it was a waste for him to fail to draw the substitute talisman. Ordinary paper didn't seem to work, so Zhou found a wooden board. It was removed from a box and was a relatively common pine wood. However, before Zhou could finish drawing the substitute talisman, the pine wood board couldn't withstand the primordial energy and shattered again. Zhou steeled his heart and found a steel plate. He used his primordial energy to draw the talisman on it. This time, the steel plate didn't crack, but the primordial energy talisman he drew instantly dissipated. It was as though he had used gasoline to write on it. It quickly evaporated. From the looks of it, it's not a problem with the materials. There should be a certain probability that the substitute talisman can succeed. It's not something that can be used just by drawing it. Zhou roughly understood the reason. Therefore, he continued using paper to try drawing the substitute talisman. After drawing dozens of them, none of them succeeded. The white paper was completely shattered. Isn't this success rate a little too low? If it were anyone else, their primordial energy recovery wouldn't be able to keep up. They might not even be able to draw so many substitute talismans in a day. They can't even succeed one in a day. This probability is almost comparable to winning the lottery. Zhou was somewhat indignant as he continued drawing. However, he still didn't succeed after using up all the paper in the notebook. Zhou was a little stubborn. He felt uncomfortable if he didn't succeed in drawing one. However, he couldn't find any more paper at home, so he left his dorm and planned on buying a few diaries from the supermarket. He didn't believe that he couldn't draw a substitute talisman. Just as he walked out of Four Seasons Garden, he saw Wang Lu returning. When she saw Zhou, she blinked and said, "When did you come back? You didn't even tell me. You even got me to help you raise the antelope and chick. Aren't these two gluttons too much?" "I just came back. I didn't have the time to go," Zhou said with a light cough. He had really forgotten about the two fellows. "You came back just in time. This is the food I bought for them. Help them take it back." Wang Lu handed the two bags she was carrying to Zhou. Zhou took a look and saw that the bag was filled with all sorts of snacks. Furthermore, they were all branded goods that weren't cheap. "Wang Lu, you don't have to feed them with these things. Just give them something to eat." Zhou was somewhat speechless as he thought. "Does your family have mine? Is there a need to be so extravagant to feed them? It's not good to abuse small animals, right?" Wang Lu said with a smile. After a while, Wang Lu said, "By the way, you came back just in time. Xianwen will have an event tomorrow. Come and join us." "What event?" Zhou asked. Li Xian said that he wants to go to Mount Laojun to see the wordless monument. Wang Lu said, "Go to Mount Laojun to see the wordless monument." Zhou was somewhat surprised. They had been to Mount Laojun once in the past. After returning, Li Xian swore that he would never go to that godforsaken place again. Now, he was actually going to Mount Laojun to see the wordless monument. From the looks of it, Li Mabai's matter has dealt him a huge blow, Zhou thought. "Are you going?" Wang Lu asked. "Yes." Zhou thought for a moment. Since Li Xian was determined to cultivate hard, he naturally had to support him. By the way, bring the antelope along when you go. Zhou felt that this might be an opportunity to see if the antelope would return to Mount Laojuan's golden peak by itself. When he arrived at Wang Lu's dorm, he saw the antelope lazily sleeping on the sofa. As for the chick, it was standing on the table, watching an entertainment program on TV. There were two other tables on the table. One plate had melon seeds, and the other plate had melon seed skins. It skillfully chewed on one melon seed and spat out the melon seed skins on the other plate. It was done in one smooth motion. Zhou broke out into a black sweat as he thought to himself, "Indeed, I can't leave my pet to a woman to raise. It's only been a few days, and it has already become like this. From the looks of it, I have to hand it to Li Xian to raise when I go out." Furthermore, Zhou realized that the two of them had actually gained weight. It wasn't that they had grown, but that they had really become fat. In the past, the chick was a small eagle with a streamlined body. Now it was as fat as a duck. It dragged itself as it walked. Zhou was really worried if it could still fly. "No, I have to educate it well. It has to become an outstanding phoenix. Who the F***CK has ever seen a phoenix that looks like a fat duck?" Zhou made up his mind to train it well in the future. From the looks of it, I should find a dimensional zone and let it train. Zhou stared at the chick as he considered which dimensional zone to take it to. The chick shivered for some reason as it moved its gaze away from the screen. When it saw Zhou, it immediately flapped its wings excitedly and flew over. Zhou spread his arms, wanting to hug it, but to his surprise, the fellow fell midway due to its fat body. It flapped its wings a few times before stabilizing its body. It didn't fall flat on its face. It left Zhou speechless. This fellow really doesn't know how to fly. Train. I have to train hard. Zhou secretly cursed inwardly. As for the antelope, Zhou didn't dare touch it and pretended not to see it. He returned to his dorm with the antelope and chick. The next morning, Zhou went to buy breakfast and sent it to Wang Lu. After waking up and eating, the two of them went to the Xianwen Club together. Basically, everyone from the Xianwen Club was present. Even busy people like Gu Jian and Huang Ji were here. Feng Xiuyan also brought Ming Xiu and Tian Jinjin, as well as Feng Ruoxi, Tian Xiangdong, and the other old members. The group took the school bus and headed for Mount Laojun. This was an activity that the Xianwen Club had applied for from the school. The driver and the tutor escorting them were from the school, so there was no need to worry too much about safety. Zhou wasn't worried about his safety. With the six-winged guardian dragon, there were only a handful of people in the Federation who could kill him. Even if he couldn't beat them, Zhou was confident that he could survive. The fat bird lay on Zhou's lap, and the antelope occupied 2 seats. They had been brought over by Zhou. After the group arrived at Mount Laojun, Zhou and Li Xian quickly arrived in front of Mount Laojuan's wordless monument with familiarity. When they went up the mountain, they encountered a few people. It was unknown what they were doing, but they stopped in front of the wordless monument. It was as though they were here to look at the wordless monument. "Elder Jun, your surname is Jun, and this is Mount Laojun. I think this is your blessed land," a middle-aged man said obsequiously to the old man beside him. Chapter 486. Zhou and company arrived in front of the wordless monument and prepared to look at it. "Students, can you wait a while and look at the wordless monument later?" The middle-aged man walked over and said. "Why?" Li Xian asked. "This is our East District's Taoist expert, Elder Jun Tingyu. He's here to study the wordless monument. If you look at it now, you will be affected by the wordless monument's power. It will inevitably disrupt Elder Jun's research," the middle-aged man said. "It's fine. Let them take a look first," Jun Tingyu said. Since Jun Tingyu had spoken, the middle-aged man didn't say anything else and returned to them. Zhou and company took out the things they had prepared before preparing to look at the wordless monument. This was because if one looked at the wordless monument for a long time, they would be affected by it. They would be like a person who was full of energy and couldn't stay idle. They would do things that required physical strength. Therefore, they had prepared some tools so that they could do what they wanted to do. For example, Tian Xiaodong had prepared 2 dumbbells. He wanted to lift the dumbbells later to expend his stamina. Tian Jinjin had prepared a yoga mat and planned on doing yoga. Apart from Gu Dian, everyone had prepared their own tools. When Jun Tingyu saw the things they had prepared, he seemed rather interested as he sized them up with a smile. Elder Jun, I heard that the power of the wordless monument can make people in a state of excitement. Then, can we use this excited state to study to improve our results? The middle-aged man, Li Mingqian, asked. Jun Tingyu smiled and said, That's a good idea, but it's very difficult to carry it out. Legend has it that Mount Laojun is the place where the ancestor of Taoism lived in seclusion, and his thoughts are mainly focused on the word Tao. The Tao follows nature, seeks the origins of all things, and obtains the great Tao of heaven and man. I don't fully understand the meaning and power of this wordless monument, but according to Mount Laojun's thoughts, it must be a power that pursues nature and returns to oneself. Elder Jun, can you say it in layman's terms? We still can't understand such profound meanings, Li Mingqian said. If I'm not wrong, the wordless monument should be able to trigger one's innate potential. Therefore, when it comes into play, humans will follow their hearts and do what they want to do in the depths of their hearts, casting aside the restrictions of the world. The things prepared in advance are only what people feel they should do, but what they really want to do in the depths of their hearts will not be affected by external factors. Therefore, what they do after viewing the wordless monument is often different from what they want to do now. Just like a student, he thinks that he should study hard, but that's only because he's in society. He thinks that he should do so because of external factors, but what he really wants to do isn't necessarily to study. Or rather, more than 95% of people don't want to study deep down. So even if he brings a book, he won't read it when the time comes. Is there no way to resolve this problem and use the power of the wordless monument on what you want to do? Li Mingqian asked again. In the beginning, when the influence is relatively low, you can still control it a little. However, after looking at it for a long time, the instinctive potential in your heart will be completely stimulated. It'll be very difficult to control it. Unless you're a saint or Buddha, no one will be able to control their instincts, Jun Tingyu said. As they spoke, Zhou, Wan, and company were already sitting in front of the wordless monument, staring at it. The longer one looked at the wordless monument, the greater the influence one would receive. However, it also depended on one's willpower. If one's willpower was stronger, then even if one looked at it for a long time, they would be less affected than the average person. However, this determination might not be a good thing. Instead, it might be an obstacle. Due to the influence of external factors, humans would do many things that went against their hearts. For example, many people felt that work was a burden and wished to go out without worries. However, due to various external factors, they had no choice but to restrain their impulses and do work that they didn't want to do. Furthermore, they had to think of ways to make themselves devote to work. If one's willpower was too strong, it was very likely that they would forget their instinctive pursuits and find it difficult to stimulate their innate potential. In that case, doesn't that mean that the things they prepared are completely useless? Li Mingqian said as he looked at the tools Li Xian and company had prepared. Unless his heart is the same as his current thoughts, it's indeed useless. Jun Tingyu spoke very conservatively. In fact, he believed that those things were basically useless. I originally wanted to bring books over so that I could learn more. Thankfully, I didn't, Li Mingqian said with a smile. Jun Tingyu said, Actually, it's not that you can't read, but you have to like it. From some of the actions, after looking at the wordless monument, you can tell a person's future potential. For example, a person who subconsciously practices his fist after looking at the wordless monument will definitely have outstanding cultivation in his fist techniques in the future. If a person subconsciously practices his sword after looking at the wordless monument, then his sword techniques will definitely be excellent in the future. They had been chatting the entire time and didn't deliberately look at the wordless monument, so they were less affected. However, Zhou, Wan, and company had been looking at the wordless monument from a close distance. Tian Xiangdong, who had the weakest willpower, was quickly affected. After looking at it for a while, he couldn't sit still anymore. He stood up and ran in circles nearby. Elder June is right. He didn't use the things he brought. However, what kind of potential does his running in circles represent? Does it mean that he will be very proficient in alacrity techniques in the future? Li Minkin asked. This isn't easy to interpret. You can interpret it this way. It's also a possibility. Jun Tingyu actually had another explanation, but he didn't say it out loud. Running could also be a form of psychological evasion. Zhou looked at the wordless monument for a while. He originally hoped to see something. Perhaps it could improve his Tao body and condense a life soul. However, to his surprise, even if he circulated the essence energy art he obtained from the wordless monument, there was no reaction from the wordless monument. After looking at it for a while, he felt a little bored. He took out his phone and sat there to grind. Zhou Wen's actions immediately attracted the attention of Li Minkin and company. Li Minkin asked curiously, Elder Jun, that student actually started gaming after looking at the wordless monument. What does this mean? Jun Tingyu shook his head and said, although people naturally like to have fun, most people still have some pursuits in their subconscious. If he's completely addicted to games like this, his future achievements probably won't be too high. Or rather, his achievements will be in the gaming field. Jun Tingyu's words were already very tactful. In such an era, a student who was addicted to gaming clearly wouldn't have any achievements. Chapter 487. Zhou naturally heard what they said, but he never cared about what others said, so he continued gaming and grinding dungeons. After the antelope arrived at Mount Laojun, it strolled around by itself. This made Zhou Wen secretly delighted, but he never expected Fat Bird to follow it. This left Zhou Wen somewhat depressed. Perhaps it was because they had been together for a long time, but the two of them were getting more and more familiar with each other. The bird and antelope seemed to be getting along well. After a while, the others also began to move. Tian Jinjin didn't use the yoga mat she had taken. Instead, she practiced her sword techniques. This was considered normal, but the next few people were somewhat abnormal. Huang Ji was the same as Zhou Wen. He took out his phone and began gaming crazily. Gu Jian took out a large pile of food from his backpack. They were basically all kinds of jerky and chicken drumsticks. He sat there and ate. Wang Lu prepared an easel and a brush and really began drawing. This time, Li Xian was completely different from the last time he came. The last time he came, he had crazily done push-ups. When he returned, he couldn't even lift his arm for 2 days. However, this time, he sat there without doing anything. He closed his eyes as though he was resting. It was unknown what he was thinking. Elder Jun looked at them. Li Minkin looked at Jun Tingyu, unsure what to say. Jun Tingyu shook his head and sighed. There's indeed something wrong with the potential of these students. They're either eating or gaming. Some even close their eyes to rest. If all the students in the Federation have such thoughts deep in their hearts, then I'm afraid the Federation won't have a future. Jun Tingyu was really worried about the future of the Federation. The Federation was already in a state of turmoil, but these young people were all so depraved. It was hard to imagine how the Federation would be able to support itself in the future with these young people who only thought about gaming, eating meat, and painting. Even though Li Minkin didn't know much about the wordless monument, he could tell that gaming, eating meat, and painting were definitely not good displays of potential. Finally, the person who made Jun Tingyu's brows relax appeared. Ming Xiu stood up, took out the practice sword on his knees, and began a practice with it. The sword technique he practiced was the same as Tian Jinjin's. In fact, Tian Jinjin's sword technique was learned from him, so it was naturally identical. However, there was one difference. Ming Xiu did not completely practice the sword technique. He just kept drawing his sword and stabbing, repeatedly doing the same action. Elder Jun, what does the student mean by repeatedly drawing his sword? Li Minkin finally saw a decent student and asked Jun Tingyu. Jun Tingyu praised and said, "Good. This student is really good. Elder Jun, please enlighten me. What's good about this student?" Li Minkin followed Jun Tingyu's words. Although it's only one move, I can tell that his foundation is very solid. He's as quiet as a virgin and as agile as a rabbit. His hand holding the sword is stable and powerful, and his sword thrust is accurate and fast. With such a foundation, he's still pursuing perfection. He's not satisfied with his own achievements, but he's also able to endure boredom and loneliness. This student's future achievements in sword arts will definitely be extraordinary. If nothing unexpected happens, he will definitely become a famous person in the sword Tao. Jun Tingyu wasn't stingy with his praise. Firstly, it was indeed because Ming Xiu was very outstanding. His praises weren't exaggerated. Secondly, after seeing Zhou Wen's repulsive students, he was simply amazed to see such an outstanding student like Ming Xiu. If our federation can have a few more young people like him, why will we have to worry about not being able to conquer a place to live in the future? The more Jun Tingyu looked at Ming Xiu, the more he liked him. He even wished that he was a student. He could nurture him carefully and make him useful to the Federation in the future. Li Mingqian also sighed. It looks like there are still talents in our Federation's younger generation. They aren't all people who only know how to eat, drink, and have fun. As they spoke, they saw Feng Chuyin stand up as well. Then he used his hand as a saber and began practicing his saber techniques. Li Mingqian saw that Feng Chuyen's moves were simple and not gorgeous, but they had a unique aura. He felt that this student was a little different. When Jun Tingyu saw Feng Chuyen's saber techniques, his eyes lit up. He said excitedly, "Genius! What a genius! Elder Jun, what's wrong?" Li Mingqian was given a fright. Jun Tingyu usually had a sage-like demeanor, giving off the feeling that he was an otherworldly expert. He had followed him for so long, but he had never seen him lose his composure. Jun Tingyu stared at Feng Chuyin without blinking, as though he was admiring a peerless treasure. This student has actually mastered such a saber technique at such a young age. He's simply a natural saber user. No, it should be said that he's a natural saber king. Jun Tingyu was a discerning person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to tell that Feng Chuyin saber techniques were good. Feng Chuyin saber techniques did indeed have the aura of a saber expert. In the future, he had a chance of becoming a grandmaster. How could Jun Tingyu not be surprised to see such saber techniques and saber aura from a teenager? The last time he saw such a saber technique was from a famous saber expert in the Federation. That person had already been famous for 20 to 30 years. His life was already on the decline, and it was impossible for him to improve further. As for Feng Chuyin, he was like the rising sun. His future achievements were limitless. No one knew how far he could go in the future. It's too perfect. There's actually such a perfect genius in this world. This trip to Mount Laojun wasn't in vain. Mingqian, help me get his contact information later. By the way, there's also that student who practices swordsmanship. With such a genius young man, there's hope for the future of the Federation. Jun Tingyu couldn't calm his excitement. Right now, he just wanted to take these two talented young people under his wing. He wanted to find out which school they were from and which year they were in. If possible, he wanted to take them under his wing and teach them as his graduate students. He wanted them to study in the college he worked at. I'll go ask them now. Li Mingqian could naturally tell that Jun Tingyu really valued these two young men. He immediately prepared to go over. Don't disturb them. We'll go after they finish their practice. If we go over now, it'll inevitably interrupt their train of thought. It won't be good if it affects them. Jun Tingyu hurriedly held Li Mingqian back, preventing him from disturbing Feng Chuyin and Ming Xiu. Jun Tingyu watched from the side. The more he looked at them, the more he found them pleasing to the eye. The more he looked at them, the more he felt that they were promising talents. Then, he looked at the crooked melons and dates beside them. The 5 kilograms of jerky was almost finished by that glutton. He couldn't help but sigh. They're both students, but why is the difference so great? Chapter 488. Jun Tingyu was very patient. He found a place not far away and sat down. He watched Feng Chuyin and Ming Xiu practice. The more he watched, the more he liked it. Zhou was grinding the metalwork temple dungeon. He had already been to the cursed demon palace. With the six-winged guardian dragon, he was no match for Medusa in the cursed demon palace. The main reason was that the palace was only that big. When Medusa's power swept out, there was too little space to dodge. He and the six-winged guardian dragon could only clash head-on with Medusa. Medusa's terrifying eyes of petrification had petrified him and the six-winged guardian dragon. Demonic neonate had nowhere to hide. It was very easy for her to die in the palace, preventing her from unleashing her true potential. Therefore, Zhou decided not to head to the cursed demon palace for the time being. He wanted to see what was deep in the music temple and the metalwork temple. Inside the training temple, Zhou summoned the fire furnace queen, six-winged guardian dragon, and the Providence goldfish. Then, he charged forward with the baby tiger. Inside the metalwork temple, the Providence goldfish's stats became +4 in luck. Occasionally, it would fluctuate. Together with the lucky baby tiger's +5 in luck, a total of 9 luck wasn't a joke. The drop rate nearly doubled, making Zhou feel that the drop rate was especially high when grinding. The chances of dropping primordial energy skills and companion eggs were also much higher. However, Zhou wasn't interested in ordinary primordial energy skills and companion beasts. The companion egg that often appeared here was the legendary steel cauldron fire sprite. Although fire elemental companion beasts were not bad, with the fire furnace queen, the steel cauldron fire sprite was naturally useless. Flame cannon, heavy metal fist, and flame protection skill were the most common primordial energy skills that dropped here. It didn't take long for Zhou to learn them all and raise them to rank 9. However, the effects of these primordial energy skills were very ordinary. Zhou usually didn't use them. The Fire Furnace Queen was clearly a rare monster. After passing through several huge palaces and corridors, Zhou finally encountered one. Unfortunately, it only dropped a strength crystal after killing it. Further in, there were steel cauldron fire sprites, hammer metal men, and other common dimensional creatures. If it wasn't for the fact that he wanted to see what was deep in the metalwork temple, Zhou couldn't be bothered to kill them. Buzz! Buzz! When Zhou controlled the blood-colored avatar to come to a halt, he heard an extremely strange sound coming from inside. It sounded like the roar of machinery. Indeed, the moment the blood-colored avatar entered the hall, it saw a strange metal monster lying inside. It looked like a war chariot, somewhat similar to a tank, but its exterior was round. It looked like a small flying saucer with wheels. It was more than 3 meters tall and more than 5 meters in diameter. There were many holes around it. Upon seeing the blood-colored avatar enter, the strange war chariot began spinning. Flames spewed out from the holes around it. Due to the spinning, the war chariot was like a huge metal top that spewed fire. Bang! The six-winged guardian dragon slapped down with its claws, smashing the strange chariot into a pile of scrap metal. Killed epic creature, blazing chariot. Discovered dimensional crystal. Realizing that it was a 38 valued primordial energy crystal, Zhou picked it up and held it in the blood-colored avatar's hand before continuing forward. Further in, there were more blazing chariots. After killing 20 to 30 blazing chariots, and blazing chariot companion egg dropped. The blazing chariot stats were considered pretty good at the epic stage, but it was useless against Zhou. However, one of the blazing chariot skills attracted Zhou's attention. The primordial energy skill was called Rampage. When the blazing chariot used this skill, it would be in a nearly invincible state, or rather, a domineering state. Even the six-winged guardian dragon couldn't smack it to death during that period of time. This skill is good, but the blazing chariot itself is too weak. I wonder if I can fuse Rampage with other pets. Zhou thought carefully and suddenly had an idea. Recently, he had been thinking of ways to obtain armor-type companion beasts. Ever since the mutated stone Chi died, Zhou didn't have any decent armor-type companion beasts. The ordinary Chi armor's defense was too weak. It was useless in front of a mythical creature. It was like paper, unable to meet Zhou's requirements. Since there aren't any ready-made armor-type companion beasts, can I fuse one myself? If I combine the life providence, life soul, and skills I need on one companion beast, perhaps I can create an armor-type companion beast that's stronger than the mutated stone chi? Let me think. The best life providence is the three-eyed golden warrior's golden body. That increases my defense greatly. I can also have the invincible golden skill. Which life soul should I use? Zhou silently calculated. It was clearly not enough to consider the life providence, life soul, and skills. This was because there was still the problem of compatibility. If the compatibility was too low, even if the two pets had the life providence and skills Zhou needed, it would be difficult for them to fuse successfully. Furthermore, after the two pets fused, their stats would change. They might not be able to retain the life soul or skills Zhou wanted. Therefore, it was almost impossible to fuse them once or twice. Zhou thought about all the pet stats he knew. Although there were a few good skills and life providences, he still felt that they weren't perfect. Furthermore, after giving it a try, he realized that the compatibility between some pets was too low. It was almost impossible for him to succeed after repeated fusion. Just as Zhou was fretting over this, a dimensional creature he had never seen before appeared deep in the metalwork temple. It was an armored warrior that was completely made of metal and looked like a heavy armored warrior. The six-winged guardian dragon slapped down with its claws. Golden patterns appeared on the armored warrior's body that looked like it was made of pig iron. They were strange and beautiful. They appeared on the black-gray armor, making the originally ordinary armor look gorgeous and resplendent. Clang! The six-winged guardian dragon's claws struck the armored warrior's head, but it was blocked by its arms. The stone floor beneath its feet cracked, but the armored warrior remained unharmed. This fellow is interesting. Zhou's eyes lit up. Clang! 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 The six-winged guardian dragon slammed down with its claws one after another, striking the armored warrior's arm heavily. It smashed the armored warrior into the ground like a nail. However, after suffering several heavy blows, the armor on the armored warrior's arm only had some fine cracks. It didn't shatter. Clang! It was another heavy blow. The shiny, lava-like patterns on the armored warrior's body shattered under the heavy blow. As the pattern shattered, the armor was also smashed into pieces. It was actually just an empty shell. There was no other creature inside. Killed epic creature, runic heavy armored warrior. Discovered dimensional crystal. Chapter 489. This fellow is an epic creature. He can actually block a few consecutive attacks from the six-winged guardian dragon. His defense is pretty good. Where are the light patterns on his body? Skills? Life providence? Where's a life soul? Zhou's interest was piqued as he searched for such runic heavy-armored warriors in the metalwork temple. Fortunately, this kind of epic-grade runic heavy armor warrior was not rare, but it could only be found in the nearby area. Behind it was a public square, and there were quite a few runic heavy armor warriors in the public square. Further behind, it was a strange building that was half embedded into the mountain wall. The building was completely made of metal, and it looked like half a huge metal ship was embedded in the mountain wall. Above the building, there was a metal statue holding a casting tool. It should be the god of forging. The runic heavy-armored warriors were the guards that guarded the temple nearby. Seeing that there was no other way, Zhou knew that the strange metal palace might be the end of the metalwork temple. He wasn't in a rush to enter as he searched for runic heavy-armored warriors to hunt. There were only about 100 runic heavy-armored warriors nearby, so it wasn't easy for a companion egg to drop. Zhou was already mentally prepared to grind a few more times, but with the augmentation of the baby tiger and the goldfish's luck, he managed to get a runic heavy-armored warrior companion egg to drop. Zhou hurriedly checked the stats of the runic heavy-armored warrior and was overjoyed. Runic heavy-armored warrior, epic life providence, heavy-armored warrior life soul, blessed combat rune strength, 36 speed, 29 constitution, 37 essence energy, 34 innate skills, fist of war, rampage, heart of fury companion form, heavy armor. From the looks of it, those magma-like patterns should be his life soul divine blessings combat runes. Furthermore, he also has the rampage skill. I wonder if this fellow can fuse with the three-eyed golden warrior. If he can fuse with a golden body life providence and a divine blessings combat rune life soul companion beast, I wonder if its defense will increase greatly in its armor form. Zhou didn't have the three-eyed golden warrior, but ordinary golden warriors also had the golden body life providence. There was no need to use the three-eyed golden warrior. He placed the runic heavy-armored warrior companion egg and the golden warrior together and checked their compatibility. He realized that the compatibility was as high as 76. Without any hesitation, he chose to fuse them. With a bang, the companion egg and golden warrior were reduced to ashes. The fusion had failed. Zhou was immediately taken aback. He found it unbelievable that the fusion would fail with a compatibility of 76%. Furthermore, he had two lucky pets with him. From the looks of it, the goddess of luck will occasionally hit a ton, Zhou muttered to himself. Thankfully, golden warriors and runic heavy-armored warriors weren't rare. One was at the legendary stage, while the other was at the epic stage. They were relatively easy to grind. However, all the runic heavy-armored warriors here had been killed by Zhou. He needed to drip his blood to respawn them. Zhou didn't respawn immediately. Instead, he walked towards the metalwork hall. He wanted to see what was inside. The door to the metal hall was very heavy. Zhou controlled the blood-colored avatar to use all his strength to push open a crack in the door. A scarlet heat immediately swept out from the hall. It almost made an epic expert like Zhou feel like he couldn't withstand it. He felt like he was about to be roasted. He hurriedly used the inverse ancient sovereign life soul to feel much better. Then, he pushed open the metal door bit by bit and looked into the hall. There was a huge furnace in the hall. Above the furnace was a golden trident. It was indescribably gorgeous and noble, as though it was a divine item from the heavenly realm. Golden trident? Zhou had heard of such a weapon. Legend had it that Poseidon's weapon was Poseidon's trident. It was a divine weapon that controlled all the seas in the world. It had the power to destroy the world. Poseidon had relied on the power of Poseidon's trident to trigger a world-destroying flood in an attempt to vie with the goddess of wisdom for control of the land. There were all sorts of myths and legends regarding the origins of Poseidon's trident. One of them was that Poseidon's trident was a divine weapon forged by the god of forging. Of course, Zhou didn't know if this golden trident was Poseidon's trident. Furthermore, in the myths and legends of other religions, the trident represented Satan's weapon. As its shape was one long and two short, it was very similar to a certain characteristic. It was believed to be a symbol of evil. This was the palace of the god of forging, so it had nothing to do with Satan. Zhou felt that the former was more likely. Even if it wasn't Poseidon's trident, it was likely a pretty good weapon. Just as Zhou was thinking about it, he saw the golden trident emit an intense golden divine light. The flames in the furnace also rose crazily, turning the entire hall into a sea of fire. The flames were extremely terrifying. Even with Zhou's physique, he couldn't withstand them. He was about to be burned to death by the flames. The baby tiger was in an even worse state. It died tragically in the flames and was burned to ashes. The goldfish and the fire furnace queen weren't afraid of the flames at all. Six-winged guardian dragon also seemed fine. They weren't afraid, but Zhou had no choice. With a thought, six-winged guardian dragon transformed into 6 flaming wings that appeared behind the blood-colored avatar. The flames on the dragon wings resisted the surrounding flames, making Zhou feel much better. The silver water snake was also summoned. It spewed out water to resist the surrounding flames, but unfortunately, its water flow was clearly a little weak. The moment it encountered the flames, it evaporated and was useless. Zhou was just about to try pulling out the golden trident when he suddenly saw the furnace shake. The golden trident flew out of the furnace and pointed at the blood-colored avatar. Boom! Golden light burst out from the trident like the sun, melting the entire hall in golden light. Zhou saw the entire screen filled with golden light. He couldn't see anything. When the phone screen recovered, it had already turned black. Clearly, the blood-colored avatar was dead. What the hell is this? Zhou was somewhat depressed. He had been instantly killed. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have made the six-winged guardian dragon transform into dragon wings. With the six-winged guardian dragon in front of him, he shouldn't have been instantly killed. Zhou was just about to drip his blood, to respawn, and enter the game again, when he heard the few people who had been resting not far away walk towards them. He couldn't help but look up. Chapter 490. Ming Xiu stopped practicing first. The influence of the wordless monument had disappeared from his body. Just as Ming Xiu was about to look at the wordless monument again and continue practicing, he saw Jun Tingyu walk over with his men. "Classmate, can we have a chat?" Seeing that Ming Xiu had stopped practicing, Jun Tingyu walked over impatiently. "Hello, what's the matter?" Ming Xiu asked Jun Tingyu in puzzlement. Jun Tingyu looked at Li Mingqian because there were some things he couldn't say. However, if he didn't say them, it would be very difficult to move a talent like Ming Xiu. Of course, Li Mingqian understood what Jun Tingyu meant. He coughed lightly and said to Ming Xiu, "Student, how should I address you? Which school are you studying in?" "My name is Ming Xiu. I'm a freshman at Bright Prospects College. I'm now on an exchange at Sunset College." This wasn't a secret, so there was no need to hide it. Ming Xiu told the truth. "Only a freshman?" Jun Tingyu's eyes lit up. Ming Xiu was even more outstanding than he had imagined. He had originally thought that Ming Xiu was already a third-year or even a fourth-year student. He hadn't expected him to still be a first-year student. He was even younger and more outstanding than he had imagined. Furthermore, when he heard that Ming Xiu was a student of Bright Prospects College and was only an exchange student at Sunset College, Jun Tingyu felt even more confident. If he was really a student of Sunset College, with Ming Xiu's excellence, he would definitely be heavily groomed. However, Bright Prospects College was much worse. It wasn't on the same level as Sunset College. As for the Imperial Capital College he was in, it was in no way inferior to Sunset College. Its ranking was even higher. As long as he gave enough bargaining chips and sincerity, he wasn't afraid that Ming Xiu wouldn't be tempted. Whether it was an exchange student at Sunset College or a graduate student at Imperial Capital College, any student with the ability to judge would know what to choose. "Student Ming Xiu, let me introduce you. This is Mr. Jun Tingyu, a teacher at Imperial Capital College. He's also the honorary vice principal and is a famous Taoist expert." Li Mingqian listed a long list of titles. Even without those titles, just being a teacher at Imperial Capital College was enough to earn people's respect. "Ming Xiu, are you interested in studying at the Imperial Capital College? I happen to be lacking 2 graduate students. You can also apply for a bursary." Jun Tingyu interrupted Li Mingqian. Li Mingqian had gone overboard. Only then did Ming Xiu understand that the old man in front of him actually wanted to bring him to the Imperial Capital Academy to study. "Sorry, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you." Without any hesitation, Ming Xiu rejected Jun Tingyu. He didn't want to come to Sunset College, nor did he want to go to Imperial Capital College. Why? "If you have any difficulties, you can tell me. I can think of a way to help you resolve them." Jun Tingyu was slightly taken aback. He did not expect Ming Xiu to reject him directly. "There's no difficulty. However, I still wish to stay at Sunset College to study," Ming Xiu said. "If I remember correctly, Bright Prospects College's exchange students will only study at Sunset College for 3 months, right? Aren't you going back to Bright Prospects College in 3 months?" Jun Tingyu asked Ming Xiu. He suspected that he had remembered wrongly. "That's right. I have less than a month left at Sunset College," Ming Xiu said with a nod. "Then why aren't you willing to go to the Imperial Capital Academy?" Jun Tingyu was even more confused. "Because there are people here who can teach me things that I can't learn anywhere else," Ming Xiu said seriously. Jun Tingyu saw that Ming Xiu was serious and didn't seem like he was being perfunctory. After some thought, he said, "Sunset College is indeed a very good school. It won't be much inferior to our Imperial Capital College. However, it might not be the case that the teaching standards here are better than the Imperial Capital College. In all of Sunset College's tutors, I, Jun Tingyu, only respect Lung Zongjing. Don't tell me your tutor is Lung Zongjing. No. Ming Xiu shook his head slightly. Then who's your tutor? Jun Tingyu asked again. It doesn't matter who my tutor is. This is because I want to stay at Sunset College to study. It's not because of my tutor, but because there's someone here. To me, he's the best coach. No one else can replace him. He taught me how to use a sword, Ming Xiu said. Oh, who is he? Jun Tingyu was somewhat interested. To be able to teach such an outstanding student like Ming Xiu, Jun Tingyu believed that he must be a highly respected tutor or a swordsman. It was possible that the school had given Ming Xiu special treatment. However, to his surprise, Ming Xiu turned his head and pointed in a direction. Then he said, "It's him. He's my coach." Jun Tingyu was somewhat surprised. He didn't expect the coach Ming Xiu mentioned to be here. However, when he looked in the direction of Ming Xiu's finger, he immediately revealed a shocked expression. This was because there was only one person in the direction Ming Xiu was pointing. It was Zhou Wen, who was gaming. At that moment, Zhou Wen had already re-entered the dungeon and continued playing his game. It looked like the battle was very intense. You said that the student who's gaming is your coach. Jun Tingyu thought that Ming Xiu had made a mistake. The person who could teach such a genius student was naturally a true expert. How could it be a student, and such a student at that? Yes, he's my coach. He was the one who taught me how to use a sword. So even if there's less than a month left, I hope to learn from him, Ming Xiu said very seriously. Jun Tingyu, Li Mingcan, and company gaped, speechless. From Ming Xiu's expression, it didn't seem like he was spouting nonsense. However, in order to learn from a student for a month, he actually gave up the opportunity to follow Jun Tingyu to the Imperial Capital College as a postgraduate student. This was simply incomprehensible to them. Student Ming Xiu, you should consider it again. Although that student might be outstanding, there's definitely a gap between him and a famous tutor like Elder Jun. You're too young, so you might not know much. Many of the students taught by Elder Jun are already famous epic experts in the Federation. Li Mingcan said. Jun Tingyu, a tutor of the Imperial Capital College, an honorary chancellor, and a famous Taoist scholar. He has the reputation of being a famous Taoist master. He has outstanding strength and has also taught Li Zijian, Zhang Huayu, and other famous epic experts in the Federation. He has nurtured no less than 30 epic experts for the Federation. Ming Xiu recounted Jun Tingyu's glorious deeds as though he was familiar with them. However, in the end, he bowed slightly to Jun Tingyu and said, "Thank you for your kind intentions. If it was before I came to Sunset College and didn't meet Coach, I wouldn't hesitate to agree to follow you to the Imperial Capital College. But now, even if it's only for a day, I hope to learn from Coach." Jun Tingyu and Li Mingcan were somewhat dumbfounded. They watched as Ming Xiu turned around and walked to the wordless monument. He sat down and continued looking at the monument. They were dumbfounded for a long time. Suddenly, they heard a saber hum that pierced into the clouds. They turned their heads and saw Feng Shuyan turn his palm into a saber and slash at the sky. He was like an azure dragon defying the heavens. His aura was terrifying, as though he was about to slice apart the heavens and earth. Life soul. He actually condensed a life soul. Heavens! How old is he? Jun Tingyu's body trembled as he stared at Feng Shuyan in disbelief. It was as though he had seen a ghost. Chapter 491. With the development of the times, all sorts of dimensional zones were developed. More and more geniuses appeared among humans, and the epic stage had a trend of becoming younger. However, even the geniuses of the six families had to be in their 20s or 30s before they had a chance to advance to the epic stage. Furthermore, they had to be extremely talented. The student in front of him, who was still in university, had already advanced to the epic stage and condensed a life soul. Even Jun Tingyu, who was used to seeing geniuses at Imperial Capital College, couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. This is a rare genius that only appears once in 100 years. I have to think of a way to take him in. I can't miss out on such a genius. Jun Tingyu only wanted to take Feng Shuyan in as his graduate student. Under the stimulation of the wordless monument's power, Feng Shuyan constantly practiced his saber and finally comprehended something. He felt like there was a burst of qi in his heart that he had no choice but to release. He could not help but erupt with his true strength and slash out that strike that could cleave the heavens. After he was done, Feng Shuyan's mood calmed down significantly. He retracted his palm and retracted his essence energy. "Hello, I'm Imperial Capital University's tutor, Jun Tingyu. What's your name?" This time, Jun Tingyu couldn't wait for Li Mingqian to introduce him. He impatiently walked over and handed a name card to Feng Shuyan. Feng Shuyan. Feng Shuyan looked at Jun Tingyu in puzzlement, not knowing why he was looking for him. "Student Feng Shuyan, are you willing to be my graduate student and study at Imperial Capital College with me? I can apply for the highest stipend for you. Furthermore, you can directly work and study in my laboratory and participate in the projects I'm researching. During this period, you can enjoy the treatment of a researcher. I'll also apply for all dimensional zones in Imperial Capital University for you." Jun Tingyu couldn't wait to throw out all his chips. He really wanted Feng Shuyan. It was easy to obtain an army of 1,000, but it was difficult to find a general. There were many humans who could cultivate, but very few people had the chance to reach the mythical stage. Many years had passed, but there were still only a handful of people who had the ability to reach the mythical stage. From Jun Tingyu's point of view, Feng Shuyan was very likely to reach the mythical stage. If he could receive his careful nurturing, he might become a legend in the Federation in the future. "Sorry, I have no plans of leaving Sunset College," Feng Shuyan said. After experiencing Ming Xiu's matter, Jun Tingyu's mental fortitude was much greater. He wasn't too agitated after being rejected. He asked Feng Shuyan, "Why did you reject it? Does Sunset College give you better treatment than me? I'm just a freshman at Sunset College. I don't have any special treatment, nor do I need any special treatment," Feng Shuyan said. "Another freshman." Jun Tingyu looked at Feng Shuyan with even more fervent eyes. This was a heaven-gifted talent. A freshman was only 16 or 17 years old. A 16 or 17-year-old epic was too shocking. Even the six families probably couldn't find many such geniuses. "No, I have to think of a way to poach him from Sunset College. From the looks of it, he doesn't lack money. His background must be extraordinary. If his surname is Feng, could he be a disciple of the Feng clan?" Jun Tingyu pondered for a moment before asking. Although the surname Feng is the #1 surname in ancient times, there aren't many people with the surname Feng in modern times. There are two more famous families with the surname Feng. They are in the imperial capital and Sea Return. "Which one are you from?" "Sea Return Feng family," Feng Shuyan answered. Jun Tingyu was overjoyed when he heard that. "Old Master Feng, born of the Sea Return Feng family, is a good friend of mine. We have a good relationship. I also have some understanding of your Feng family's essence energy art. If you are willing to study at the Imperial Capital College with me, I can provide you with special wind elemental crystals that are enough for your cultivation." A special wind elemental crystal wasn't something that could be bought with money. It could only be obtained by hunting wind elemental dimensional creatures. However, wind elemental dimensional creatures were relatively rare, and the drop rate of wind elemental crystals was low. The Sea Return Feng family's essence energy art required a large number of wind elemental crystals to advance to a higher realm. As a result, the Feng family's wind elemental crystals were always insufficient. They had to spend a large amount of resources to purchase them at a high price. But even so, it still wasn't enough. It could be said that he had invested a lot by offering such a condition. Even Jun Tingyu himself felt the pinch. From his point of view, Feng Shuyan had no reason to refuse. Wind elemental crystals were just too important to the Feng family. "Sorry, I don't plan on leaving Sunset College." Feng Shuyan didn't hesitate as he rejected him again. Jun Tingyu was somewhat surprised as he looked at Feng Shuyan and asked, "Can you tell me why you aren't willing to go to Imperial Capital College?" Li Mingqian and company also looked at Feng Shuyan. They couldn't figure out why Feng Shuyan would reject the offer. Any university student would probably follow Jun Tingyu to Imperial Capital College without any hesitation. Not to mention poaching a first-year student, it was more than enough to poach a famous researcher. Furthermore, Jun Tingyu was willing to take out his own wind elemental crystal. This was like a lottery that fell from the sky. They couldn't figure out why Feng Shuyan would reject it. Was he out his mind? Feng Shuyan said matter-of-factly, because there's a coach here, but Imperial Capital College doesn't. Upon hearing the word coach, Jun Tingyu, Li Mingcan, and company's hearts skipped a beat as they thought. No way? Jun Tingyu's expression was extremely odd. He glanced at Zhou Wan, who was gaming not far away, before looking at Feng Shuyan and asking, "Which coach are you talking about?" "He's over there." Feng Shuyan pointed at Zhou Wan, who was gaming. Although they were mentally prepared, Jun Tingyu and company's expression still changed when Feng Shuyan really pointed at Zhou Wan. Jun Tingyu's emotions were extremely complicated as he looked at Zhou Wan with a strange expression. Li Mingqian couldn't hold it in any longer and couldn't help but ask, "Feng Shuyan, you said that he's your mentor. Can you tell us who he is?" "His name is Zhou Wan. Just like me, he's a first-year student at Sunset College," Feng Shuyan answered. Jun Tingyu's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. "Another first-year student?" Li Mingqian continued asking in puzzlement. "He's also a first year. Can he be stronger than you?" Li Mingqian actually wanted to say, "What right does he have to be your coach?" However, he was still someone who cared about his reputation, so he was too embarrassed to say such words directly. However, in Li Mingsan's heart, Feng Shuyan was already an unprecedented genius. It was understandable if he had a mentor or a famous person as his coach, but they were both first-year students. That fellow who was addicted to gaming was actually Feng Qiuyin and Mingxiu's coach. Li Mingqian felt that this was unbelievable. It was very likely that Feng Qiuyin and Mingxiu were just brushing him off as an excuse for not wanting to go to Imperial Capital College. When Feng Shuyan heard Li Mingsan's doubts, he immediately said seriously, "Of course coach is stronger than me. Compared to coach, it's like the difference between heaven and earth. I'm far inferior to coach. It's the fortune of my life to be able to cultivate with coach." Jun Tingyu and Li Mingqian were dumbfounded when they heard that. They couldn't help but look at Zhou Wan, who was engrossed in the game. They really couldn't connect such a student with the image that Feng Shuyan had described. Chapter 492. Could it be that I really made a mistake? That student is really a genius stronger than Mingxiu and Feng Shuyan. Jun Tingyu was already beginning to doubt himself. He could tell that Mingxiu and Feng Shuyan's words were filled with admiration for Zhou Wan. The feelings that came from the bottom of their hearts couldn't be faked, so it was impossible for them to be perfunctory. However, Jun Tingyu couldn't believe that the fellow who was gaming could be better than Mingxiu and Feng Shuyan. Feng Shuyan had already advanced to the epic stage at such a young age. It was a rare occurrence, but he admired Zhou Wan, who was the same age as him, like a student worshiping his teacher. He couldn't imagine what kind of person Zhou Wan was. Is there really such a genius in the world? Jun Tingyu looked at Zhou Wan with mixed emotions. Li Mingqian and company also looked at Zhou Wan and couldn't help but gulp. Even Feng Shuyan admitted that he wasn't as good as him. It was even more difficult for them to imagine what kind of genius he was. "Teacher, does this action of playing games have a deeper meaning?" Li Mingqian began to doubt his previous judgment. Although he knew that it wasn't good to question Jun Tingyu, he couldn't help but ask. Jun Tingyu was now somewhat apprehensive. He carefully observed Zhou Wan, who was gaming, and felt that he was indeed extraordinary. His expression was calm, and his temperament was outstanding. Although he was gaming, he gave off an aura that didn't seem to be fazed even if the sky collapsed. It seemed that he was indeed different from the masses. In fact, this was all Jun Tingyu's psychological effect. Although Zhou Wan wasn't simply gaming, from his appearance, he looked no different from an ordinary person gaming. It would be a miracle if he could see that he wasn't fazed even if the sky collapsed. While Zhou Wan was gaming, his phone suddenly rang. It was the phone he usually used. When he heard the voice of the message, Zhou Wen immediately jolted. This was because he had specially set this sound. Only when the Arch sent a message would it sound. Zhou Wen didn't dare delay as he hurriedly took out another phone from his pocket. Indeed, he saw a message from the Arch. It's been so long, but I still haven't seen a single thing I want. I think you don't take this Thearch's matter to heart. I really should punish you. Otherwise, you will think that this Tharch only knows how to scare people. When Zhou Wen saw this message, he immediately broke out into a cold sweat. He was afraid of death, and he was even more afraid that the Tharch would sever his limbs. That would be terrible. The Tharch, I've been being pursued recently, so I didn't have the time to buy those equipment for you. Don't worry, I'll immediately think of a way to buy them for you. Even if I have to sell everything I have, I'll definitely buy them for you. Zhou Wen had too many things to do recently, so he had really forgotten about this matter. It's too late, the Tharch replied. Zhou Wen hurriedly tried to think of a way to explain. He was really afraid that the Tharch would make a wish to have all his limbs severed. It was a loss for a good young man to have his limbs severed because of a few crappy instruments. However, no matter how he explained, the Tharch didn't reply. This made Zhou Wen feel extremely uneasy. When Juntingyu saw Zhou Wen using his phone to communicate with the Tharch, his eyes lit up. He shouted excitedly, "Genius! This person is really a genius." Li Mingcan and company were given a fright. Li Mingcan hurriedly asked, "Elder Jun, did you discover something?" Juntingyu said, "I'm getting old. I really made a mistake previously. This young man is really a peerless genius. It's no wonder even geniuses like Mingxiu and Feng Chun admire him so much." "Elder Jun, how did you tell? Tell us." Li Mingsan's heart itched when he heard that. Juntingyu pointed at Zhou Wen, who was sending messages on his phone, and said, "The wordless monument has a power that targets the human heart. Even a top epic expert will focus on doing what they want to do after being affected by the wordless monument's power. Before they are exhausted, they definitely won't be distracted, nor can they be distracted. However, look at him. When he's gaming, he can actually use another phone to constantly type and send messages. This means that his mind isn't completely affected by the wordless monument's power. To be able to maintain his will under the wordless monument's power, this person's willpower is simply unheard of. Even a saint is only SOSO. To have such a powerful willpower, this person must be extraordinary. No wonder. No wonder." The more Juntingyu looked at Zhou Wen, the more he felt that he was different. The more he looked at him, the more he felt that his temperament was outstanding. He actually had the demeanor of an aristocrat, making it impossible for him to treat Zhou Wen as a junior. How could Zhou Wen have known that Juntingyu would decipher so many things? As he had cultivated the wordless monument's essence energy art, he wasn't affected at all. There was no need for him to use his willpower to resist the wordless monument's power. However, there was one thing that Juntingyu was right about. Zhou Wen's willpower was indeed extraordinary. Zhou Wen sent several messages, but the Arch didn't reply. He knew that this matter was probably going to blow up. He felt that it wasn't appropriate for him to continue staying here. He had to quickly think of a way to protect himself and resist the Thearch's impending rage. In front of so many people, it wasn't appropriate for him to make a big fuss. He had to quickly find a place without anyone around. Zhou Wen put away his phone and stood up. Seeing that Li Xian and company were still immersed in their own world, he walked out and said to the tutor who was guarding them, "Tutor, there are some matters in the academy. I need to return first." After obtaining the tutor's approval, Zhou Wen was about to leave the mountain when he was blocked by Juntingyu. "I'm Juntingyu from the Imperial Capital College. I wonder if you have the time to chat with me?" Juntingyu didn't treat Zhou Wen as a student and treated him as an equal. "I'm really sorry. I have urgent matters to attend to and need to return to school. Let's chat again if there's a chance in the future." Zhou Wen turned around and left. "Why is this person so rude?" Li Mingcan said. However, Juntingyu thought nothing of it. Instead, he felt that Zhou Wen was extraordinary. After some thought, he said, "Geniuses all have personalities. Zhou Wen is indeed not an ordinary person. This is understandable. I'll visit him at Sunset College tomorrow. Just as Li Mingcan was about to say something, he suddenly saw an antelope and a golden eagle-like bird descend from Mount Laojun. The antelope followed behind Zhou Wen, and the bird circled above his head as though it was protecting him. Li Mingcan, Jun Tingyu, and company were dumbfounded. The animals on Mount Laojun were no ordinary creatures. With Mount Laojun's protection, they could be said to be pets in the backyard of a saint. They had actually taken the initiative to follow Zhou Wen down the mountain. They had never heard of such a thing and found it unbelievable. Zhou Wen went all the way down Mount Laojun and headed straight for the academy. He felt uneasy along the way, unsure how the arch would deal with him. Chapter 493. Zhou Wen returned to school in trepidation all the way until he returned to his dorm. Nothing happened. Zhou Wen didn't dare be careless. He summoned all the companion beasts he could use and didn't sleep in his bedroom. He stayed in the living room and felt safer with the antelope and chick by his side. It was strange. Ever since he returned from Mount Laojun, the chick that was as fat as a duck had slimmed down again. It looked as energetic as when it was thin. Zhou Wen wasn't in the mood to study why the chick had slimmed down in the blink of an eye. He sat on the sofa and placed a few notebooks beside him as he drew substitute talismans page by page. This was a life-saving item. If he could get it out, he might be able to save his life even if the arch wanted to deal with him. After drawing one after another, the success rate of drawing a substitute talisman was really low. However, as the saying goes, practice makes perfect. As Zhou Wen drew more, he gradually got the hang of it. Although this was a skill obtained from the primordial energy skill crystal, the one who drew the talisman was still Zhou Wen himself. Zhou Wen realized that when drawing talismans, if he only used his primordial energy to draw the talisman according to the drawing method, the success rate was pitifully low. The lines of the substitute talisman seemed to contain some kind of profundity. Zhou Wen pondered over the strangeness of the lines and gradually gained something. This substitute talisman needs to be drawn with my own primordial energy. The lines drawn also contain some kind of mystical power related to me. It looks like drawing talismans, but it's actually a form of understanding of myself. At the same time, it's also a way to communicate with external objects. Zhou Wen thought as he drew. Zhou Wen drew all day and all night. By the next morning, he had lost count of how many substitute talismans he had drawn. After all, he had almost used up all the thick diaries. Finally, he managed to draw one. This also meant that Zhou Wen had almost infinite primordial energy to use. If it were anyone else, they probably wouldn't be able to draw so many times in a month or two. Although the substitute talisman is useful, it's too difficult to draw one. It's really not easy to get one. Zhou Wen held the drawn substitute talisman and felt a little excited. With this talisman, it was equivalent to having an additional life. Unfortunately, the substitute talisman could only be used by himself. This was because the substitute talisman Zhou Wen drew was closely related to him. It could only help him fend off disasters. As for what kind of calamity a substitute talisman could withstand, Zhou Wen wasn't too sure. Although drawing talismans wasn't easy, Zhou Wen had an unexpected harvest. Drawing talismans required him to sense the connection between himself and external objects. During this period, Zhou Wen constantly used the Tao Sutra, resulting in him gaining some insight into the Tao Sutra. The Tao follows nature. If I want the Tao Sutra to condense a life soul, I'll probably have to work hard on heaven-man unity, Zhou Wen thought to himself. Even though it was only a small clue, as long as there was a direction, there was a possibility. He wouldn't be as blind as before. Zhou Wen didn't have the time to enjoy nature. He put away the substitute talisman he had drawn and lay in bed to sleep. Drawing the substitute talisman consumed both yuan qi and energy. After drawing it for so long, he was already exhausted. Furthermore, he had yet to recover from his serious injuries. Now that he had the protection of the substitute talisman, he could finally sleep in peace. He slept soundly. Due to his exhaustion, Zhou Wen slept very soundly. He was only woken up when the doorbell rang. "Who is this?" Zhou stretched his back and was about to ask, "Meow." However, the sound Zhou made gave him a fright as he hurriedly covered his mouth with his hand. However, when he stretched out his hand to take a look, Zhou was instantly dumbfounded. It wasn't a hand, but a furry claw. The nails on the claw were like hooks. Where the palm should have been, it had turned into a pink ball of flesh that resembled a plum blossom. What's wrong with me?" Zhou was alarmed. He wanted to stand up and size himself up, but he quickly realized that his body had become extremely strange. Furthermore, there was a problem with his vision. The furniture around him had become very large. The clothes he had worn yesterday were at his feet. They looked extremely large, as though they were worn by a giant. Zhou immediately had an ominous feeling. He hurriedly ran to the mirror and looked at himself. Meow. Looking at the black and white cat in the mirror, Zhou was dumbfounded. He covered his mouth in horror with both hands, and the kitten in the mirror did the same action. At the dormitory's entrance, a tutor pressed the doorbell a few more times, but no one opened the door. Hence, he apologized to the old man beside him. "Elder Jun, I'm really sorry. It looks like he's gone out." Jun Tingyu was very disappointed. In order to visit Zhou at Sunset College, he had gone to the trouble of finding a friend at Sunset College, but Zhou wasn't around. "It's fine. I'll come again next time." Jun Tingyu could only return in disappointment. In the dormitory, Zhou was about to explode from anxiety. He twisted his body and made all sorts of postures. He even tried to curl his tail. All he wanted was to prove that the kitten in the mirror wasn't him. Unfortunately, no matter what he did, the little tabby cat in the mirror did the exact same thing. What was even more terrifying was that Zhou tried to use his essence energy art or summon his companion beasts, but there was no reaction. The arch. It must be the Thearcha's doing. Damn it. I have a substitute talisman on me. How could there be a problem? Zhou ran to his pile of clothes and used his claws to pull at them a few times. He realized that the substitute talisman was in his clothes. It was untouched and had no effect at all. "Don't tell me I've turned into a cat just like that?" Zhou hurriedly took out his phone. Thankfully, it wasn't just a fingerprint unlock. He could also unlock it with a picture. Otherwise, Zhou wouldn't even be able to open his phone. He unlocked his phone and immediately sent a message to the arch. "The arch, how am I to buy those instruments for you after you turn me into this?" Zhou knew that he could only use benefits to move the arch. Begging for mercy was probably useless. "I have plenty of ways to get someone to deliver things. Who said I have to get you to buy them? As for you, you have to be punished." The arch finally replied. Zhou sent a few more messages, hoping to move the arch and quickly return to human form. However, the news sank into the sea. The arch didn't reply to his messages at all, as though she was determined to make him a cat for life. Chapter 494. What should I do? Is there any way to restore my human body? Zhou tried all sorts of methods, but he was only a cat now. His body structure was completely different from before. He couldn't use the primordial energy art and various companion beasts he had cultivated in the past, so what other solutions could he think of? The antelope and Chick looked at him with interest. The antelope even used its hooves to rub his head, as though it was comforting him. But Zhou could tell from its eyes that it was trying its best to hold back its laughter. The Chick hopped around him and stuck to his side, as though it wanted to compete with him to see who was taller. However, when the Chick stood up, it was really a little taller than Zhou, who was on all fours. "No, I have to think of a way to restore my human body." Zhou moved and used his claws to hide his phone and the bracelet embedded with the chaos bead before walking towards the dormitory door. Looking at the world from a cat's perspective, his perspective was clearly much lower. Even the dormitory door looked very big in his eyes. Zhou leaped up, hoping to grab the handle and unlock the door. In the past, he only needed to jump up to such a height, but now his claws had reached their limits. He was still quite a distance away from the door handle before his body fell. Zhou landed on the ground and used all his strength to jump up again. Only then did he jump up and open the door handle. Although he was used to walking on 2 feet, it would probably be very bad if the other students and tutors in school saw a cat walking on 2 hind legs. Therefore, Zhou could only lie on the ground and walk like a cat. Although there was no problem with a cat walking like this, Zhou found it very awkward. After leaving the door, Zhou planned on heading to the principal's office. His current situation was probably impossible for ordinary people to resolve, so he wanted to find Sunset College's principal, Lung Zongjing. He heard that Lung Zongjing was good at cracking illusions, so Zhou felt that it was impossible for him to transform into a cat. Perhaps it was just an illusion. Zhou thought to himself, I'm a student of the college after all. Lung Zongjing won't leave me in the lurch, right? However, Zhou didn't have any confidence that Lung Zongjing could turn him back into a human. He only wanted to try his luck. Just as he walked into the yard, Zhou heard the door to the neighboring building open. He hurriedly ducked into the grass and hid there as he peeked at the neighboring yard through the peephole. Indeed, Wang Lu walked out with 2 trash bags in her hands. It looked like she was going to throw the trash. Zhou didn't want anyone who knew him to know that he had become a cat. Be it Li Xian or Wang Lu, they would definitely mock him for a long time. Furthermore, as a cat, he didn't have any clothes on him. Although he had fur, he would still feel uncomfortable if someone he knew saw him. Therefore, he had no intention of contacting Li Xian and company for the time being. Although Zhou knew that Wang Lu probably couldn't recognize him as a kitten, it was better to be careful just in case. After Wang Lu left, Zhou planned on leaving in another direction. He planned on taking a detour to the principal's office from the old school district behind Four Seasons Garden to prevent himself from encountering so many students and tutors. Although he had become a cat, he wasn't wearing any clothes. Zhou still couldn't stand the gazes of others. The yard's door was locked from the inside. Although Zhou could jump up and open the door, it would be too eye-catching. Looking at the yard's wooden fence and his body, Zhou felt that it wouldn't be difficult for him to crawl out with his current body. Although he looked a little plump, most of it was likely fur. Zhou came to the wooden fence and chose a relatively large gap before sticking his head out. The outcome was perfect. His head didn't feel any pressure as it drilled through. When his body tried to crawl out again, his stomach was stuck, as if something had hooked onto his fur. If he tried to force his way out, he would feel a little pain. Poor little kitty, where did you come from? Why are you here? Just as Zhou was about to retreat, he heard a familiar voice. Not good. Zhou's expression turned nasty when he heard the voice. For some reason, Wang Lu had returned. Zhou struggled to return to the yard, but something had hooked onto the fur on his belly. He couldn't retreat no matter how hard he tried. His belly felt like it was about to be torn apart. Poor little fellow. Why are you so stupid? Wang Lu squatted down and reached out to press down on Zhou. Then, she reached down with her other hand and helped him untie a metal wire. This made Zhou feel pleased with himself as he finally crawled out. Zhou wanted to leave, but Wang Lu grabbed him and carried him up. Although you look like a stray cat and not an expensive breed, you look pretty. Come back with me, all right? Zhou struggled with all his might, hoping to escape Wang Lu's claws. It wasn't easy for him to escape. After landing on the ground, he immediately ran away with his claws. Strange, that kitten actually rejected me. Wang Lu was somewhat surprised. She never expected this cat to be so difficult to get along with. The stray cats she had encountered in the past were all easy to get along with. Zhou ran out of Four Seasons Garden as though he was fleeing for his life. After running far away, he slowed down. He felt extremely exhausted. Ever since he cultivated, he hadn't felt so tired in a long time. I have to recover my human form as soon as possible. Zhou continued walking forward, but before long, he saw a few ferocious tigers blocking his way. No, it should be said that they were ferocious cats blocking his way. At the corner of the building in front of him, 4 cats walked out and glared at Zhou, one with their teeth bared, as though warning him not to enter their territory. The 4 cats were bigger than Zhou. Furthermore, Zhou found them a little familiar. On careful look, he recalled them. Weren't these for the ones that Gu Jian had secretly fed in the past? Zhou still remembered that one of them was called Little May. Its body was pure white, with only an orange-red fur growing on its forehead. It looked very eye-catching. However, when Zhou saw it previously, it was still a tiny kitten. Now, it was about the same size as its mother. It was even bigger than Zhou. I'm just passing by. I definitely have no intention of snatching your territory, nor do I have any intention of offending you. As Zhou spoke, his words turned into meowing sounds. He slowly circled to the side, hoping to circle around them. Meow. However, Little May and company didn't care much as they pounced forward to deal with the intruder. Holy sh*T, do you really think I'm a cat when a tiger doesn't show its might? Zhou was depressed as he prepared to fight. Although he was now in the body of a cat and had lost his strength, his reaction speed and various skills were still there. Under the siege of Little May and the other three, he was still incomparably brave. Using his coquettish positioning and pulling, he restrained the four cats and then defeated them one by one. His little claws fiercely beat them up, causing Little May and the other three to cry out miserably. Haha, you're still far from being able to fight me? Now, do you know who's the real king here? Zhou beat the four cats up and even used his claws to hold down Little May. Just as he was feeling smug, he suddenly felt the flesh on his back being grabbed and lifted up. Then, he heard a familiar voice. You can't do that. Chapter 495. Zhou flailed his claws, hoping to break free from the palm that was holding him, but he failed to do so. The scene in front of him changed, and soon, Zhou saw a face. It was as ferocious as a ghost, but the eyes on the face were looking at him with an indescribable gentleness. Were you abandoned by your owner as well? You must be hungry after coming all the way here, right? Eat something first, Gu Jian said as he placed Zhou on the ground beside him. As Gu Jian spoke, he placed Zhou on the ground beside him. There were two cat food trays there, one filled with milk and the other with cat food. Zhou had never seen Gu Jian be so gentle to others, nor had he seen him speak to others in such a gentle manner. This was completely different from the Gu Jian he knew. Hurry up and eat. Zhou was placed beside the plate of milk as Gu Jian squatted by the side and looked at him. Little May and the other cats glared at him, but they didn't dare come over. All they did was meow from afar. Little May, Little Yong, you can't do this. It's just like you. It's a pitiful homeless fellow. You should love each other, Gu Jian said to the four cats. Zhou had goosebumps when he heard that. He turned around and wanted to leave. In order to prevent Gu Jian from catching him again, he ran with all his might. However, after running for some distance, he didn't hear Gu Dian's footsteps. Instead, he heard an unfamiliar man's voice coming from afar. How's the matter I asked you to do? It's been so long, but you can't even do such a simple thing. Don't tell me you're afraid of Zhou. Zhou originally didn't plan on stopping, but after running a few steps, he heard his name. He couldn't help but stop and turn his head. He saw a boy in a school uniform standing opposite Gu Jian. Zhou didn't know the boy, but he looked like a senior who was slightly older than him. Why did you touch Zhou? Gu Jian asked the boy. You don't need to know. Just do as I say. The boy curled his lips and said, I'll give you 3 more days. If you haven't done what I've instructed you to do in 3 days, I'm afraid I won't be able to help you keep that secret. Think about it yourself. With that said, the boy turned around and left with a cold expression. With Zhou's understanding of Gu Jian, this fellow was likely someone who wasn't afraid of anything. If someone dared to threaten him, he would probably throw a punch at them regardless of who they were, right? But this time, Gu Jian watched the arrogant boy leave without any intention of taking action. Zhou was very curious. He didn't know who the boy was and what he wanted. What leverage does Gu Jian have that he has? After some thought, Zhou didn't leave immediately. He wanted to figure out what was going on. After all, this matter involved him. If he didn't figure out who the mastermind was, similar incidents might happen in the future. Zhou walked to Gu Dian's side. When Gu Jian saw it, his fierce face revealed a hint of gentleness. He squatted down and placed the milk plate in front of Zhou. Hurry up and eat. Zhou was a little anxious. Gu Jian clearly wasn't a person who liked to speak. It was probably unrealistic to wait for him to talk to himself about what had happened. How can I get Gu Jian to tell me the entire story? Countless thoughts flashed through Zhou Wen's mind, but he failed to come up with a solution. Ask Gu Jian after transforming back into a human? This was clearly not a good idea. His relationship with Gu Jian wasn't that close. He was only slightly better than a stranger. If he were to ask him in person, he might fall out with him on the spot. Even if he didn't, with Gu Dian's personality, he probably wouldn't tell him anything. As Zhou Wen pondered over it, Gu Jian pushed the milk to Zhou Wen's mouth. How could Zhou Wen drink the milk for a cat? He subconsciously turned his head to the side, indicating that he didn't want to drink it. However, when Zhou Wen's action landed in Gu Dian's eyes, he sighed softly. Do you think it's wrong to? Do you think I did something wrong? Zhou Wen subconsciously nodded, but just as he nodded, he regretted it. He was a cat now, so how could he understand Gu Dian? Gu Dian looked at Zhou Wen in surprise. However, his ability to accept things was clearly stronger than Zhou Wen imagined. He didn't suspect Zhou Wen and even thought that Zhou Wen was a very intelligent cat. I also know that it's wrong, but if I don't do that, they will spread the news that I have a dimensional creature's bloodline. When the time comes, everyone will treat me as a monster and not a human, Gu Jian said. Zhou Wen nearly cried out in surprise. He never expected Gu Jian to have the bloodline of a dimensional creature. Could it be that either Gu Dian's father or mother is a dimensional creature? Can humans and dimensional creatures combine and give birth to offspring? Countless strange thoughts flashed through Zhou Wen's mind. But all this time, Zhou Wen and company have treated me like an ordinary person. They haven't been afraid of me because of my looks or ostracized me. They have treated me as one of them. How can I do such a thing? What do you think I should do? Gu Jian looked at Zhou Wen and said bitterly. Due to Gu Dian's problems, he didn't have the chance to make human friends. Furthermore, he didn't know how to communicate with humans. However, in front of Cat, he could speak his mind at ease. Wasn't this a form of sorrow? Beat him up. Beat that son of a bitch to death. Who cares if he's human or not? Ignoring the fact that you have a dimensional creature bloodline, I wouldn't mind even if you were a beast. Zhou Wen wanted to say that, but the moment he opened his mouth, it turned into a meow. Zhou Wen had no choice but to raise a claw and point in the direction where the boy had left. He pointed a few times, indicating for Gu Jian to beat him up. When Gu Jian saw Zhou Wen's reaction, he seemed to understand something as his eyes turned resolute. I know what to do, Gu Jian said to Zhou Wen before standing up and striding in the direction the boy had left in. Zhou Wen hesitated for a moment before chasing after him. He still wanted to know the boy's goal in dealing with him. He might be able to hear it later. However, after becoming a cat, Zhou Wen lost all his primordial energy. His fastest speed was only the speed a house cat. So how could he catch up to Gu Jian? By the time he caught up to Gu Jian, he saw that Gu Jian was already standing in front of the boy as though he was talking to him. I can't attack Zhou Wen. Change to another condition. Zhou Wen vaguely heard Gu Dian's voice say. Change to another condition? Why do you have to bargain with me? Don't tell me you really think that Zhou Wen and company treat you as a friend? They just want to use you because you are stupid and strong. If they know that you have a dimensional creature bloodline, do you think they will still be willing to let you stay in the Xianwen Club? When that happens, they will only treat you as a monster. They will look at you like pigs and dogs. They are all beasts, the boy said as he pointed at Gu Dian's nose. Chapter 496. This has nothing to do with you, Gu Jian said with his head lowered. How can it have nothing to do with me? At the end of the day, aren't we good friends? The boy smiled as he patted Gu Jian on the shoulder and continued. Have you forgotten our friendship? I've always remembered it. Gu Dian's pupils constricted, but he still didn't say a word. Think about it carefully. The present Zhou Wen will be the second me in the future. The boy narrowed his eyes and said, Birds of a feather flock together. Your birth has already determined that you won't have any true human friends. Apart from people like me, humans won't accept a monster like you. If you don't touch Zhou now, when he learns of your true identity in the future, he won't hesitate to draw a line with you. He might even kill you." After a pause, the boy continued, "Don't tell me you don't know what happened to his teacher, Wang Mingyuan. Do you think he will still admit that he's Wang Mingyuan's student? If Wang Mingyuan appears again, it means that he will definitely want to kill Wang Mingyuan. That has nothing to do with me," Gu Jian said expressionlessly. "Nothing to do with you? In that case, even if everyone knows how your mother gave birth to you, it won't be a problem?" The boy narrowed his eyes and stared at Gu Jian. Gu Dian's expression changed drastically. He suddenly raised his head and glared at the boy. "Lu Kide, if you dare leak a word, I'll definitely kill you. I'm just saying, how can I leak it? We're friends. I'll definitely keep your matters a secret for you. I won't let anyone know. However, you have to help me settle Zhou Wen's matter. Otherwise, I won't be able to live. Some things will be hard to say." "Ah." As Lu Kide spoke, he suddenly saw a cat leap up and claw at his face, leaving a few bloody marks on his face. Zhou Wen was about to explode from anger after listening for a long time. Although he didn't hear the entire story, he could roughly guess what had happened. Gu Jian wasn't a normal human. Furthermore, it wasn't his problem, but it stemmed from the previous generation. Lu Kide had used some unknown method to become Gu Dian's friend and learn of his secret. In turn, he had used this secret to threaten Gu Jian. Zhou Wen could also understand why Gu Jian didn't retaliate. Just like Gu Jian, he didn't wish to bring trouble to others, especially his family. If it was just a matter of his identity, he believed that Gu Jian wouldn't be threatened by him. He would have long beaten him up so badly that even his mother wouldn't recognize him. However, this involved Gu Dian's mother's reputation. Therefore, even though Gu Jian was extremely furious, he didn't dare attack Lu Kide. Without a doubt, Lu Kide wasn't a fool. He definitely had some kind of evidence in hand. Furthermore, even if he died, this evidence would still spread. Only then could he threaten Gu Jian. The more he understood Gu Jian, the more upset Zhou Wen felt. When he saw Lu Kide's despicable face, he couldn't help but go forward and slap him a few times. Now, Zhou Wen only hated himself for losing his strength. Otherwise, he would definitely have smacked Lu Kide's face in a mush. Now, all he could do was leave a few bloody marks. "Darn cat. Gu Jian, you bastard. What the hell are you raising?" Lu Kide was enraged as he reached out to grab Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen ran and jumped onto Gu Dian's back. "Stop." Gu Jian blocked Lu Kide. "Move aside. I'm going to kill this bastard." As Lu Kide spoke, he wanted to grab Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen lay on Gu Dian's shoulder and looked at him with a faint smile, as though he was mocking him. Gu Jian didn't move aside. Instead, he reached out to stop Lu Kide. Lu Kide was extremely furious, but he was stopped by Gu Jian and couldn't grab Zhou Wen. However, he didn't give up because of this. He took 2 steps back and suddenly summoned a companion beast. The companion beast was a strange flying saber. After it flew out, it circled around Gu Jian and stabbed at Zhou Wen on his back. It was as fast as lightning. Zhou Wen was alarmed as he cursed inwardly. He was only a cat now, so it was probably difficult for him to dodge such a fast flying saber. A huge hand suddenly grabbed the blade of the flying saber. The flying saber trembled in Gu Dian's hand, but it was unable to escape. "Gu Jian, let go," Lu Kide shouted angrily. "He's just a cat." Gu Jian held the flying saber tightly, but blood dripped down from between his fingers. "I'll say it one last time. Let go. Otherwise, everything about you will spread throughout Luoyang tomorrow," Lu Kide said fiercely as he glared at Gu Jian. Gu Jian held the flying saber without letting go. He didn't say a word as he looked at Lu Kide. Lu Kide was even more infuriated. He summoned another saber and slashed at Gu Jian. He even shouted, "Get out of the way. Do you hear me?" Gu Jian didn't move. Lu Kide's saber struck his shoulder, causing blood to spurt out. However, Gu Dian's body was indeed strong. The saber only injured his flesh and didn't manage to cut into his bones. Lu Kide didn't give up. He slashed at Gu Jian again and again, leaving bloody marks on his body. Even the flesh on his face had split open. It had to be said that Gu Dian's body was truly powerful. Under such a slash, he only suffered superficial injuries. When a blade struck his bones, one could even hear the sound of metal clanging. The reason why Liu Kai was so furious wasn't because Zhou had scratched his face, but because Gu Jian had repeatedly disobeyed his orders. This made him very angry, and he wanted to harm him. Zhou scratching his face was just an excuse. Beat him up. Zhou turned anxious when he saw Gu Jian allowing Liu Kai to slash at him without moving. Do you think of yourself as the same kind as these beasts? Do you think they are more important than your life? Monsters are monsters. Liu Kai cursed as he slashed. Seeing that Gu Jian wasn't moving, Zhou couldn't bear listening any further. He saw an opportunity and suddenly leaped out from Liu Kai's shoulder. His claws quickly danced as he grabbed at Liu Kai's eyes. Liu Kai never expected that a cat would be able to pass through his saber net. Furthermore, they were too close. His left eye was injured by Zhou's claws. He covered his eye with one hand as blood immediately seeped out from between his fingers. I'll kill you. Liu Kai covered his eye in rage. The saber in his hand transformed into a saber beam that filled the sky as he slashed at Zhou. This fellow's strength was indeed not bad. Zhou had never heard of his name. It was obvious that he wasn't famous in school, but he had the strength of a legendary. Furthermore, he was at the pinnacle. Clearly, he had been hiding his strength. From this, it was obvious that he wasn't an ordinary person. He definitely had some ulterior motives. Seeing that Zhou had fallen into the saber beam, Gu Dian's eyes immediately widened as he unleashed his strength. His powerful body charged into the saber beam that filled the sky. He hugged Zhou with one hand and struck out with the other. There was an explosion, and the saber light that filled the sky dissipated. The long saber in Liu Kai's hand broke inch by inch, and he was sent flying by the force. He fell 7 or 8 meters away, and the hand that held the saber trembled and bled. Gu Jian, you dare attack me? Liu Kai widened his eyes as he gritted his teeth and stared at Gu Jian as though he wanted to bite him. Why wouldn't I dare? A voice sounded from the corner of the building. Liu Kai and Gu Dian's bodies trembled as they couldn't help but turn their heads to look. They saw a young officer in a military uniform and white gloves, looking refined and gentle, walking over. He's finally here. Zhou heaved a sigh of relief. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.